Before I get into today's intro and today's guest, I have to give a big shout out slash thank you to all the subscribers, all you listeners, and all the guests that have been on the Golf 360 show. Simply because we just had our second anniversary. We're coming up on very quickly on 50 episodes. If you would ask me prior to starting this, if we would have got this far, I would have said, "You're crazy." It was just done is something that I thought would be very enjoyable to introduce a lot of listeners to maybe some people they had not heard of before or had heard of and had never really had a chance to follow or connect to. And then for the guests who've come on to provide a lifetime of learning and expertise, the ins and outs, the ups and downs, and how they went about those things to become the top level achievers that they had and connect both sides of that so that everybody can learn and benefit from it. And it's been a fun ride so far. I can't thank all of you for the feedback, the subscribes, the listens, the inputs. Also, big thank you to all the guests for making the time to come on. As many of you know, this show is long form, and for a lot of guests to make 2 hours plus of time and take that out of their day, I just feel very, very fortunate that I've been able to have them on and have hopefully provided some value and some worthy information to everybody out there. Speaking of great guests, we got a great one for you today. He has been a top hunter coach for quite some time, has done a lot of great things in the golf business. He recently moved to the Low Country here in Bluffton from Charlotte and is the current director of instruction at Colleton River. And the local golfers, the local PGA is very fortunate to have him down here because he's got a lot of great ideas that I'm anxious and willing and very excited to see him put in action once he kind of gets settled here as far as education. For those of you who haven't figured it out yet, his name is Jason Sutton. You might recognize him by his other name, the Golf Guru. This was a very cool show for me today. Jason and I had never met in person. But I followed him for quite some time on social media because I really like how he coaches. I like what his videos, the way he's put things together. But one of the more curious things that I was anxious to find out about Jason, is the little I knew about him, was we seem to have a lot of similar passions. Obviously, coaching and teaching is one of them. But Jason and I both are big Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn fans. We obviously started our podcast and were inspired by the Tim Ferriss show and the Joe Rogan Experience. And it was just cool to sit down with somebody who's always looking and trying to find out what they can learn, not only in the golf and the teaching and the coaching world, but what can you learn outside of that world and industry that can be utilized to enhance either a student's game or a life of somebody and provide value to them and those around you. So he and I share that more so than anybody I've probably run across so far. And it was just nice to talk to somebody who's into a lot of different things and how to improve and just kind of trade ideas instead of talking to some people who would say, yeah, you've got yourself spread too thin. You're going in too many directions. So that was very cool and maybe a little bit of a selfish reason to have him on. But like I said, the local area is very lucky to have someone like Jason in this area, helping golfers, helping the community. And a lot of great things I'm sure are going to come from that. I mean, we talk about a lot of different things in today's show. His educational background, which is almost second to none, all the certifications and knowledge that he has, how to utilize those things. Obviously, the coaching, we talk a fair amount about the X's and O's, so it might get a little technical there for a little bit. He's obviously adapted very well to technology, and I recommend you checking out his website, his podcast, again, the Golf Guru Show. He has a coaching app and an e-newsletter that you should sign up for on his website. And as always, all those links will be in the show notes and the summary. So very cool show. You all are going to take a lot from this. If you're in the Hilton Head, Bluffton area and you get a chance to take a lesson from Jason, I highly recommend it. Your game and you will be very thankful and happy that you did. So as always, sit back, relax, But before you do, give a big Golf 360 welcome to my guest today, the golf guru, Mr. Jason Sutton. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. Hey everybody, I want to give a big shout out to a new sponsor of the Golf 360 podcast, and that's Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms and their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model that's also often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns and little attention. At Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts, not just advisors, who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Call Affinity Wealth today for a no-cost consultation with one of their experts at 724-754-8200. Again, that's 724-754-8200. Or you can also check them out on the web at www.affinitywealthmg.com. That's AFFINITYWEALTHMG.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. All right, here for another show. Got the golf guru, Jason Sutton. Welcome to the Low Country, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
It is very good to have you. You recently moved here to Hilton Head and Bluffton. You're from Charlotte. You were at Carmel. Am I saying that right? Some people say
it's not Carmel. It's not California. It's Carmel.
And we're very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Right. I think you're going to find, as we talked earlier, that it's a great local chapter. It's very close knit around here. Very welcoming. And with a lot of things you do with education and helping other people, I think people are going to really gravitate to what you got. Have you gotten to play? We talked a little bit about some of the courses you're itching to play, but where have you played so far?
Pretty much just Colleton, which is barely any.
That's a pretty good couple to play.
Yeah, it was good. It's been weird because like the first week I was there, my boss Eric Schultz is like, all right, I got you we got a little tournament this weekend. I'm like, all right, what's that? And he goes, we're playing the red tees on the Nick. And I'm thinking, all right. So we play against the members. It was kind of a red tee challenge. And it was like 40 degrees and blowing 40 miles an hour. It was so cold. and I managed to break par, which I was only one of the 2 pros that broke par. It was so hard, but
Were you playing the die or the Nicholas?
the Nicholas, yeah. So
last 3 holes, 4 holes is
it
brutal.
was challenging. Yeah, actually, I bogeyed 2 of the last 3, and so that was like my first introduction to the golf course. So I hadn't played the back tees until I've had a couple playing lessons where I'll play 3 or 4 holes, but I've played the die once, and then I played the die yesterday in a cross country Scotch event, which was interesting. So we have like a Scotch society, and then we have a bourbon society. So I've been invited to both of these, and I can't drink obviously. So I'm getting to watch them pound scotches every hole because it's sitting on every hole. But they play like from one green to another tee, or tee to green, to, basically just different crazy. So that was fun. We actually won.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still hitting it pretty good for lack of practice and lack of play.
It's like riding a bike, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes.
Once you do it enough, I should say.
Yeah. So I do pretty good for not really working on my game a whole lot, but.
We've never met formally. I followed you for a while on social media, and from what I can gather, we got a lot of similar passions. We both enjoy teaching.
Yeah.
That's what drives us. Learning probably more than anything. Continuing our own growth and education to help others. I think you're big Tony Robbins fan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We both enjoy Tim Ferriss.
Yes.
A lot of those things. I know he kind of inspired me to get the podcast started.
Me as well.
And I'm watching or listening to him. I mean, I bought his book. If I can go back just a little bit, I was a big Charles Poliquin fan. Charles was a world-class trainer. I think he trained more Olympians than anybody on the planet. So I used to follow him all the time. And he had his top 5 books you should read, and he had the 4-hour work week. And for some reason, it just, wow, that looks interesting. And I got it. I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. Just my mind just kept going like the national debt.
Mm-hmm.
And after I got that, I was hooked.
Tribe of Mentors.
Yes, they're all sitting right over there in the corner.
They're so big, like it's hard to get through them all. But yeah, he kind of inspired me, not so much to do the podcast, but I was already listening to the podcast and sort of tailored my style around him, and still listen to him. But I mean, a lot of the questions that I ask are similar, if not copied. Like what Tony Robbins says, model successful people.
That's
until
right.
You learn how to kind of find your own way. And that's
Steve Jobs, great, good artist. Was it good artist copy, great artist steal, or something like that?
Sounds about right.
But where the hell was I going with that? No, it doesn't really matter. But
personal development, just
yeah.
early days. Yeah. I know when I first started at Dana's and I was trying to get better at teaching and coaching, I knew there was a lot more to that, to just the instructional part, but it's like we have to deal with people, right? And I found a guy named Jim Rohn, he just passed away a few years ago, but he was Tony Robbins' mentor. He talked about Tony Robbins being 19 years old and sitting in one of his seminars. So I was pirating all of these talks from him on CDs, and I used to listen to a lot of stuff on the way to work and back, and that really just changed my mindset about just how I was going to change myself. He always says, for others to change, you have to change, and don't worry about everybody else, but change yourself, and everybody around you will change. So,
the idea also of getting used to being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right. If you're in constant state of comfort, then you're not growing.
100%.
And once it's like I don't want to say. I guess some people consider it a fear. Leaving that comfort zone. I know years ago when because I always knew who Tony Robbins was, like most people, and I would see him all the time, and then Tim Ferriss had him on like 3-4 times. Like, okay, if he's got him on, I was going to Florida for something. I said, I at least got to listen to this, at least one. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool.
A lot of programs. Yeah.
And then I watched I'm Not Your Guru, the documentary. And I was like, that blew me away. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, so for like a year, I watched and listened, and I've got 3 or 4 of his books over there I read. And it's like, so it's taken me a couple years to get used to being uncomfortable and accepting it.
My early days, again, kind of when I started teaching full time, started working for Dana, I was like very shy, awkward, horrible presentation skills. I mean, when you're not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm setting all these goals, right? And be a top teacher and do this. And then eventually, I mean, you're either going to be on TV, you're going to have to do videos, or you're going to be doing presentations. I had to get better. So I had to get really uncomfortable. And Dana was great to kind of push me in front of golf schools and say, hey, go talk about this and, do a presentation. And I went to Toastmasters. I did a whole class on public speaking and, try to get, better and start to improve in that area. And it's helped me a ton along the way. Now I enjoy it, but it's something back then that scared me to death.
Do you, where does the desire or need, whatever word you want to come in, work for you to continue to learn different things? Because you're very diversified. You learn from a lot of different. You don't just pull from the golf industry. You're pulling from outside, and utilizing it and to the best way that you can to become a better coach and teacher and person, and students get better. Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know, man. It's a great question. I guess, my parents early on, they were very influential. I remember my dad telling me, when I decided to start to play, put golf in the forefront when I was, a junior golfer, and because I was playing all other sports, and he wanted me to play baseball or football, and I'm like, golf seems to be sort of where I want to start to pursue. And then when I went and played college golf and got out, and I was like, he's like, what are you going to do now? Like, I want to be a golf pro. And he goes, well, whatever you do, just try to be the best,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that was everything, but I mean, I don't know. It's just, I think it's something deep down that I just can't handle mediocrity. I've just got this drive inside of me that says, if you're going to do something, try to be the best, and I've talked plenty of times on my podcast is I want to be the number one teacher in the world, and if that doesn't happen, it's fine. Right. It's just, it's who you become on that journey that is what matters. Right.
That's very interesting you bring that up, because I had Randy Soma on. Randy's a very dear family friend, and he coached me in basketball when I was a kid. But Randy was the number 2 guy at Johnson Controls, and he's been out of that world for about 15 years, I think. But I don't know if he consults or mentors
Mm-hmm.
young business guys that want to. And so he asks them, where would you want to be in 5, 10, 15? And then the question he follows up with is, what type of person do you want to be in that when you get to that position? Like, do you want to be a flaming asshole? Do you want to be someone who's everyone respects and they love working for you and they can't wait to get to work that day? So, I mean, and I think that's a big part that people lose.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because, I've set that goal. And again, it's not, I mean, you can say what it is, whatever, but to get there, I don't want to be a part of that if it requires me to like bash other coaches, make other people look bad. I'm going to get there by lifting other people up
Mm-hmm.
and helping them. Zig Ziglar says, if you help enough other people get what they want, you can have everything you want. It's one of my favorite quotes. And if I don't get there, it's fine. But I know I'll become a better person, and I'll have affected other people through what I am as a person and who I know I am inside. So it's just, it's a lofty goal, but I'm not, if they said, you can be the number 1 coach in the world, but you've ruined somebody else's career, or you've bashed somebody else and, made them look bad or stepped on other people to get there. I'm not all about that.
Yeah. Did you compromise who you are or your morals
Absolutely.
and values, ethics to achieve?
Yeah.
And I think that I'm pushing 50. We're
Just
about
over.
the closest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you get to our age and you look back and, your 20s and 30s, you're pushing as hard as you can.
Yeah.
And we talked about that earlier. At that age, you usually think, when you know a little bit, that you know everything.
Absolutely.
And now you look back and say that it's not all about just achievement.
Yeah, I remember when I was in my 30s, and like we talked about it before we came on air, and I was starting to build a little reputation in the area. You start thinking something, and you start thinking, oh, why am I not getting this, or winning awards and this and that. And here I thought I probably knew 70% of what I needed to know, and then looking back now, I probably think I know 30% of what I need to know 20 years later. And it's just a different mindset. But I looking at some of the things that our influences that we've talked about, Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, and these people talk about, the proper mindset, leaving a legacy. Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm a big fan of his. I've followed
I don't know
him.
how much that guy's got energy.
Unbelievable,
Out the wazoo.
yeah.
It's amazing.
So he's been a big influence when social media kind of started. We talked about, when the recession hit in 2008, and I'm having to actually pick the phone up or do something different to get my name out to build my business. He's one of the first people that I ran into and read his book, Crush It, and kind of gave the blueprint. I'm like, I don't know how to shoot a YouTube video. I mean, what do you mean? I can start a YouTube show? I mean, what? So it's like, I don't know how to start a blog. I had a blog and all this stuff. And I'm like, this guy gets it. He's very confident, but he's also helping other people. And that's how we rise to the top. I mean, it's not about acting like more than somebody else.
Yeah, because in today's world, with the internet is just going back years ago. It was developed, if I'm not mistaken, to help pass information along to the benefit of mankind, or at least as supposed to. And even social media has gotten to what it's gotten to, but I think the intent of social media is still there. Like
for sure.
How I reached out to you, and I know your son's playing golf really well, and I think your daughter just graduated, or she just went to college?
Yeah, she just graduated from App State
right.
last
so I
week.
mean, it lets you follow people that and understand. You stay in contact with them in a busy world that's pulling us in 100 directions.
That's right.
I think that's the best part of social media. Just don't put anything political on it.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I don't get into politics. So.
I don't anymore. I had enough arguments with people. I'm like, yeah, it's not worth it.
Nope.
Now, you for some who aren't familiar with you, and I wrote down a number of things that you got just to illustrate the type of continual development of yourself. And so, I mean, a lot of people know probably your top 100 golf magazine teacher, Golf Digest Best in State. But where they might not know is your Wedge Matrix. These are all certifications, by the way, for some you don't know. Wedge Matrix with James Ridyard, Scott Calk's Anatomy Toolbox, Golf Smarter, Aim Point, D-Plane, K-Vest, TrackMan, Sam Putt Lab, Body Track Pressure Mat, Hack Motion, and U.S. Kids certified. Did I miss any?
That's probably.
I mean,
it. And I'm a +2 fisherman.
Me, I'm off the charts. When the beginner comes to the twilight and their handicap so high you can't fit enough dots on the card, that's me. By the time I hook the fish, that thing's halfway down their throat. Let me see, did it nibble? Yeah. Should I pull it? No, and it spit it out and it probably sucked it back in. I'm terrible. Yeah. I enjoy it, but I'm terrible.
Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of whatever seminars, and then, like we talked earlier, hosting a seminar for several years and selfishly learning and being able to present, which is, if you're not getting asked to present, then host your own.
Right.
That was my original thought, is like, all right, well, if I want to go speak somewhere, nobody knows who I am, then let's just host my own seminar.
I did something similar back then, like 09, 10. I call them the Hilton Head Golf Forums.
Yeah.
And the first, I didn't want to be on them as a panel member. I was on the first one because I've been here so long. A lot of people know I am. But I know Andrew was on one. It was all mostly local guys because I wanted to do it to learn the ins and outs before I reached out to some bigger names to try to draw them to Hilton Head. Mm-hmm. And it just, it wasn't received. I mean, in the beginning, we were pushing 50 to 80 people.
That's good.
And it was in conjunction with the local chapter. And then I think I had a $10 charge just to cover the website and the printing of stuff to take around. But it just, well, as you're finding out, the low country can lull you into a sense of melancholy really quick. And I just think that, I don't think I got the support of the local pros where they were pushing it to their members. And if you don't have people coming and spreading the word, it's just not going to. We did that for about 2.5 years.
Yeah,
but it was fun.
I hope to bring back some education in this area. I'd like to bring back some workshops and start to do some more things.
I hope it really. I'll help you all I can because I know. Let me see how many. It might have been 12 years ago. Val Skinner came into town because Krista and her partner were opening a golf store. And they obviously knew Val, and they had this big gala opening, and Bob Rotella came in because he was very good friends, I guess, with Val.
Mm-hmm.
And he told Krista, he said, look, for the local PGA, I'll do a free, 1 hour talk beforehand. They had this big tent because they were having food and everything. How many of us showed up? I think it was 6.
Really?
120 people were in the chapter, registered.
Yeah.
Probably 150 total, and 6 people showed up to hear Bob Rotella. Wow. And this was when he was
pretty big.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was Bob Rotella. So I'll help you any way I can because it needs to, for an area like Hilton Head that's considered a big time golf destination.
We got so many, outstanding coaches in this area too. So, definitely gonna do some collabs.
Mm-hmm.
With Tim and Dana or some, Krista. Get some things going for the members, but then we need to do something for the pros too.
As I was reading up on you, and I'm a big fan of your podcast. So everybody,
Thank you.
Got to check out the Golf Guru Show, and that'll be in the link, and we'll talk about that a little later. Like many others, you started as an assistant in the bag room.
Mm-hmm.
I think I started as a caddy and worked to the bag room, then up the chain. But where was the attraction to teaching? What made that shift for you to get into the teaching side?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was coming up through the ranks in the PGA program, the old
School
program.
1, School 2.
Yeah, Business School 1, Business School 2, Business School 3, and then you do a presentation, and they give you your Class A. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just sort of following what everybody else did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't have a whole lot of direction. All I knew was at that point, because I was in West Virginia at this time when I got my Class A, and the whole ranks sort of genre is like, okay, now you got to be a head pro somewhere. And like there wasn't any head pro positions where I was coming from, and guys were staying like 30 years. I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I'm like, all right, where do I want to go? Well, Carolina section was the biggest section. It was pretty close. I'd visited. My sister-in-law lived in Charlotte. I was like, all right. So I just started interviewing and got on to a brand new club that wasn't even open yet, Northstone Club, and I got an assistant's job. And the pro, Kurt Vogel, left the next year, and I just got kind of thrown in there as a head pro.
Not to cut you off, but Kurt Vogel went to Ferris. He was a junior senior when I was a freshman. He's a trip. I went to a lot of parties at Vogel's house.
Oh yeah, great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Hope he's doing better. I know he was in a bad car wreck, and but so I just kind of got thrown into being a head pro, and I'm like, all right, here we go. 27, 28 years old, and no
baptism by fire.
No clue. Yeah, kind of a big operation, and just failed miserably. It was just, I wasn't cut out for it. I mean, it was okay. I learned a lot, but every year I'd sit down and kind of write out my goals of like where I want to be in 5 years, and figuring out, trying to have some sort of plan, and everything kind of lined up to teaching. There was a Ritz and Soul Golf School, satellite school at Northstone at the time. And in my off time, I'd go out and watch the girl out there that teach. She taught a couple LPGA tour players, and I'd go watch her teach in my off time. And she would always say, like, you're miserable. Like, what are you doing? Like, and they tried to hire me, actually. She ended up going to Dana's, long story short, and ended up leaving. But she actually got me an interview when I left Northstone. And I was like just fortunate to get, she took a chance on me, interviewed well, and came in, and it's like my whole world changed, right? Because I knew that's where I wanted to be. I just figured, it was definitely my strong suit. Managing people was not my strong suit at that point. That was pretty clear. Didn't want to run golf tournaments. Didn't want to
fold sweaters.
Yeah, it's just, I'd done all that, and it was great, but I just knew I wanted to teach, and I was just really, really interested in that. And then Dana gave me a chance, and after that, the rest is history, because it just opened up a whole new world.
Well, it's kind of like Butch said in your show with him, is that his members come in for 3 days and they're gone, right? He sees people for schools. He doesn't have to deal with people. Well, the grass is, why are the greens so fast? Next week, why are they so slow? And it's like, you should order these shirts, or you should order this color. It's like, okay, no.
Yeah.
And there's some people cut out for that. I'm not
Sure.
but
Yeah. No.
I
No.
was very similar. I could not stand working in the pro shop.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be outside. I wanted to. I don't know. I just was, and I was always just fascinated with like how people learned and the golf swing, and because didn't have any direction back in those days. I always tell Mike, the guys that work for me and younger guys, I'm like, you guys are like 8 years ahead of me because I had 8 years of just like doing nothing that was going to get me better as a teacher. I was just sort of floundering, and I wish back in those days I would have done something to move in that direction sooner. But everything happens for a reason.
Coming here for me was eye-opening. I had never been south of, well, my dad's from Pittsburgh, so I think the furthest south I had been was Morgantown because my aunt did her doctorate there at West Virginia. But I had never been south of that. And coming here was a game changer for me. And at the time, Don Trahan, so Rick Barry was at the Plant Club, still is. Don Trahan was at Harbortown. And Don had just come out with his book then, was it Plain and Simple? He was working with Hugh Royer and a whole bunch of guys that were breaking through and getting to the tour. So I if I had to pick the range, I'd pick it really quick, and I just sit there off to the side and just listen to him teach all these tour guys.
Yeah.
And for me it was just like this is awesome, because when you're from, I grew up just north of Detroit. It's like the only instruction you're getting is really in a magazine. Or the old timers, right? You go out to a range and like, okay, just roll your hand.
Everybody's got
here.
advice.
Right. There was nothing, at least for me, Don was the first one that was trying to quantify things with orthopedic surgeons and some people back then. So that was pretty cool.
Stick it in the catcher mitt, run
in the mitt,
tree.
up the tree. and limited shoulder turn. Could you imagine pushing that today? I mean, it's like, it's gone.
No chance.
No way.
Yeah. Good thing his son was very hypermobile.
Yes. And Don pushed it as a low impact to your joints in your back. And then when DJ hurt his back, it's like, hey, Don, what happened? But Don is Don, and he's going to do what he's going to do. But who are some of the people that helped you along? Mentors, whether it was in the personal side or in the golf side or in the instruction side. I know you mentioned Dana.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody that I've been, I mean, that the list is long, right? I mean, Dana was a great mentor to me because I worked for her, and she was such a, not just learning how to teach golf, but it was just learning how to deal with people, and then just had a huge effect on my life, which I think is what a mentor does. So
right.
it's more than just your job.
Yes.
So I kind of left there, having a lifelong friend. But golly, I mean, you just name it. I mean, the people that I've learned from, like, I feel like I'm just like a melting pot of like every seminar I've gone to and everybody I've watched teach. And we talked about it before. It's like short game. I'm kind of a low key putting guy because of guys like John Graham and Phil Kenyon and David Orr and, all these people that have helped me. And I've just sort of developed my own style, and then James Ridyard in short game has, completely changed my instruction. Scott Calks in full swing, and I mean, golly, John Sinclair, Tyler Farrell, I mean, Chris Como, I mean, anybody that you sort of have befriended and have been nice enough to pick the phone up when I call, Mark Blackburn, I mean, golly.
I really like following Mark and his style of teaching.
Yeah, he's great.
He's got, you could not tell, if you took his guys and said, do all those guys work with the same coach? Most people would say no way, because their swings are different by such a large margin, but he gets guys to play very well. Yeah,
he digs deep into the biomechanics and obviously influenced by TPI and how people move, and I've learned a ton from him. I mean, he's just been a great mentor and friend. I mean, it's like mentors are friends. I mean, it's just like, I've built so many great relationships over the years that are just amazing. Our business.
That's one of the best things about the golf business and coaching in particular, is coaches are always willing. I think it has to do with just the game in general. The culture of golf is, if if we were playing in a tournament and you beat me by 2 shots in the first round, and I'm out there on the range grinding to sort something out, the chance of you stopping by and saying, "Hey, I think if you try this, I saw this on a couple of swings." I mean, what other sport do you see that in?
Yeah, and I'm not sure it happens as much today.
Yeah, LeBron's
on
not
the
going
tour.
over to Harden,
Yeah.
in the pregame and say, "Hey, Jay, I think your elbow's a little out of place when you're shooting. Try
Yeah.
this, and you'll probably run for 40 tonight."
Yeah.
That's just not happening.
No.
Or the guy's calling penalties on himself. You imagine LeBron saying, "Hey, look, rep, I stepped out of bounds. Let me give the ball to San Antonio."
Yeah, integrity's not quite there.
In the world in general.
Yeah.
Is there anything that really sticks out on something, and it not even golf swing related, or something someone taught just in general that says, this had a large effect on changing the course of what I was doing?
As far as like technical
No,
teaching,
not
or-
even in teaching. Well, it could have been something to change revolutionize, let's say, your teaching, but just as a life lesson. To someone said, "Jason," pulled you aside and said, work at this, or gave you a nudge or a kick in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much. I think it was just a culmination of all that we talked about, like when I was in my 30s, and just having that mindset switch of it's not all about me.
Mm-hmm.
When I started sort of just saying, "Hey, let's educate yourself, not just on golf stuff, but in life stuff." With the Jim Rohn and the programs I was listening to, and then the people I was talking to, I think that was probably the biggest change, because I don't think if I wouldn't have switched that, I don't know where I would be now. Definitely wouldn't be where I'm sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And just changing my focus to like, how can I help other people? Which, in my opinion, and then as we get older now, we become mentors. Helping other people helps you as well. Like, it's a two-way street, right? And I always tell people, like, they ask me to help them with whatever. They reach out on Instagram or Twitter and say, "Hey, can I come watch you teach?" Or, "Hey, I got a question. Can you call me?" Like, that doesn't bug me, because it keeps me sharp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Iron sharpens iron. So when you have to teach something to somebody else, you learn it better, because it comes back to you. But I can't say that there was one moment. You know what I mean? Like, it's just been an evolution of, like you said, just trying to get better every day. And
Yeah, and then you
my
look
goal,
back.
my goal every year was just like, all right, I always do a little reflection of my goals or what I learned that year. And it's like, if you don't have much on your plate, then you didn't do enough. So it's just been so many, and it's all about the people that we meet and how they affect you, and then just, again, trying to help them in any way. But it's a two-way street.
Yeah, who was it that said if you need to feel some gratitude every night when you go to bed, and if you can't find anything you have that for, then go do something good for somebody.
That's
and
right.
You'll feel good about that. That was pretty.
Yeah, but you don't do it to get something back.
No.
You do it because it's the right thing to do. And obviously it makes you feel good inside. It's funny. Really proud of my son and how he's matured the last few years in college. And he came home. He just got home last week from college, and he said, "I'm starting a gratitude journal." Me and my girlfriend are both like writing
That's pretty
things.
cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty impressive for a kid in college.
it is.
To be at that
It's so funny, because I had talked to him about, you don't know what comes through when you tell your kids things, right? And they're just like, "Yeah, whatever. That's stupid."
It's just my dad talking.
I've got right. Yeah, I've got multiple journals that I'd always keep and write things down, and you don't know if they're listening. And all of a sudden they hear it from somebody hears it from a Mike Stud podcast, and all of a sudden it's the greatest. But it's like, okay, you're getting it. You're kind of learning the way. And I told him the other day, I was like, "You're doing the same stuff I've been telling you to do. You realize that?" He goes, "Yeah, but I'm kind of getting it now."
Where's he playing?
Tennessee Tech University.
And he's doing well.
Doing good. Yeah, he's had a nice couple years, and he's in for summer and getting ready for some summer tournaments. And yeah, it's been a good fit.
Good. Glad to hear it. You were from small town, relatively small town. Went to a small school. And usually not where I grew up. I mean, the town was small, but it was metropolitan Detroit, so it's big. But it was a small knit or close knit community, and like you, I had trouble where I constantly got pulled into the pro's office and said, "Look, you got to be more outgoing. You're too." They said you're too laid back. You're too stoic. I didn't even know what the hell stoic meant back then.
Yeah.
I'm just like I don't know what to say, you know. And I wasn't ever one that was cocky or anything by any means. I was probably the opposite. I shunned attention, and I had to go through something similar to what you did. Do you think that growing up in a small town, but what I'm getting at is when you grow up in a small town, you grow up with as you've grown, you've taken that mentality that for anyone who's come from one knows, and then you've taken it to wherever you've gone. Does that sound about right, or am I way off base on that?
No, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but I mean, I literally almost got fired from my first assistant's job because I wouldn't speak to people, and I didn't know. I was just,
you don't know how.
I was just shy, right? I was just being myself, and
I've still got it. The first assistant job I got, the guy told me to get Dale Carnegie's book, and it's still sitting over there. That helped me a ton. I don't know how well it works in today's world with Gary Vee and all the Tony and some of the other guys, but
that's crazy. That's the first personal development book that I read. How to win friends, influence people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so weird that you said that because, yeah, I literally, got lucky to get just an assistant's job right out of college, and I was just being, but people perceive you as being stuck up or being cocky, like you said. And I was far from that. I was just a shy kid from small town West Virginia. Like I'm just trying to, check you in, and
I'm just trying to do what I'm supposed to do.
I'm just checking the T sheet, man. What are you talking about? So yeah, pro calls me. He's like, man, you got to like start saying hello to people when they walk in. Blah blah blah. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I feel like I'm friendly to people, and he's like, I'm getting complaints, and I'm like, okay. So, like anything, that's sort of, I guess, when the continuous learning journey started is if I don't know something back then, it was pre-internet, I'm like, let's find a book.
Right.
So I found that book and it's like, oh, wow. So I actually have to like act interested in other people. And that's sort of what came out of that book. And once I started sort of having that mindset, it's like, oh, wow, this is interesting. I'm actually learning what my clients or what my members are doing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love so much about my job now is like time I'll get caught up in a lesson after I've like fixed them. And I'm like, so how'd you make that $100 million, or what'd you do? Like it's, I'm always curious about successful people and, how they did it. And, it's just that's why people are so interesting, which is such a,
you got another avenue to go down and it becomes, you become more friends with them or closer to them. And it's more 100%. About golf. Looking back for me, it was as golf instruction has shown us, because I always get the question from the decent players that know enough to be dangerous to themselves. It's like, well, why would I need to do something at this level, or why do I need to get on a TrackMan or go through this is too deep and this other stuff? And I said, and my dad always, like, my dad's very, very old school, right? He's 78 years old. Jack Nicklaus didn't need all that stuff that you're talking about, and Bobby Jones didn't need how they play so good. But now
who knows how much they would have won if they'd have had it,
right? And but I always looked at it's like the eye opening for me was when you read a book like Dale Carnegie's Win Friends and Influence People. Now you understand how to do it, and you can implement it when you want to implement it instead of being a shy person. Mm-hmm. When you're home with your close knit friends or you're in your own environment, you can do it, and you don't even know how you're doing it.
Yeah.
Now you're learning how to do it, and you can do it on command. And I think that that's the kind of the story I relate to some of my students. It's like, okay, if you don't want to know it, fine, that's the way we'll go with the lesson. But if you want to learn and know how to use it when you need it, meaning the club championship or member get whatever tournament you're playing in, Hilton Head Open, then I've got it for you. But whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like when we've read books when we were younger and maybe didn't quite understand them. Now you go back and look at the same information a few years later now it means something to you.
Yeah, your perspective's
Because
completely
you've
different.
changed. You've changed. Yeah, I remember when I read the Golfing Machine for the first time. I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy."
I'm still trying to. I've read that for the first
And
time
it's
for
yeah,
about
I
10
still don't
years.
have it. I mean, it's shout out to Chuck Evans. It's like kind of hand fed it to me over the years, and like, oh, that's and then Scott Calx kind of brings it to light. But then you go back after you've gathered more information and go, oh, well, that kind of makes sense now, or this, an example.
It's like pieces to a puzzle.
Yeah, that's
A
all.
giant jigsaw
That's
puzzle.
all we're doing. The
And we're
whole
trying,
that's
now
our
I can
job.
see. There's that piece. That's where it goes.
Yeah.
Now, you played for a little while, right? Professional?
Not really, just club stuff. Yeah, I played a couple
But
mini
in
tour
college,
events.
you
I played in
at a very
college.
competitive level.
Yeah,
College
we
and then
we
some.
were one of the top NAIA schools. I played at Glenville State when I was there, and then turned pro right after that, and just play. I was better. It was weird. Like, the more when I started teaching, I started learning more about the golf swings. I never really had a serious coach coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I got better, and I was a decent, club player. I won a few, pro-ams and, and made a few cuts in some state opens and whatnot, but I was never going to be a tour player. But I enjoyed it, and I can still play at a decent level and kind of kept my game up. But, it's tough to do both, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I
very much.
really have high admiration for these guys that can go qualify for the CPC and still teach at a high level. It's just difficult to do. I've figured out over the years I'm kind of a single task guy. I really am. Like, if I try to do too many things, then I won't be very good at any of them. So, but if you give me a task and if I have a goal, I'm a bulldog, and that's where when I said, man, I can be really, really good at coaching. That's just the direction that I've always kind of stayed on.
And you work with a fair number of juniors. Do you obviously call on that experience quite a bit working with them? Do you find out that they actually listen once they hear that, hey, I played in college. Here's what if you want to go to big school, here's what you're gonna have to do.
I think
that it gives you some street cred.
A little bit, yeah. And also when I go out and play with them, right, and I can still beat them. Most of them. Some of them are getting pretty good, but yeah, I think that's. I'm not saying you got to be a great player to be a great teacher, because you don't.
No.
But I think you got to be. I'm a really good demonstrator. Like, I can get all the ball flights, I can make all the stuff, do all the moves. But I think more than anything, it was just a reputation that I had helped a few kids, and that goes a long way. Then word of mouth kind of gets around that, hey, this guy's putting kids into college. And
I remember when I was done playing for 4 or 5 years, I was doing whatever I was doing, and I had for me a decent number. I think I had 5 or 6 kids, high school level. I was working with one was from the academy, and I love the kid to death and his family. He's playing in South Africa right now, the Els Tour. I think he came in second his last 2 events.
nice.
But he was at Notre Dame at the time, and he's probably going to hate me for telling this story, but he would come home or here because his folks were in Africa, and I'd still beat him, and it would drive him crazy. And I'll never forget, we were playing Savannah Golf Club one time, and the last hole, it used to be the 9th hole. I think now it's 18, but it's probably 340, and he knocks it on the green, and he's got a 6-footer to tie me. And I say, you're the college hotshot. I play once a month, and you still can't beat me, and you want to go pro? I used to just wear him
That's
out
awesome.
with that. And now he beat my brains, and I hardly played in 5 years, and he's doing great stuff now.
That's like my kid. He's such a better player than me when he's playing well, but I can get him because I can just get in his head.
Did you see
he tries a little
Daly the
here
other
and there.
day where he was with his son, and his son
kid's
says,
a good player.
He goes, you can't hit it by me anymore, Dad. He's like, yeah, I know. Don't have to rub it in.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy
That
hearing
is
Daly
crazy.
say that to somebody.
Nick played in the DJ with him a couple years ago, and yeah, he's turned out to be a nice little player.
Let me ask you about your coaching philosophy, because
Mm-hmm.
with all
Sure.
the information that you've gathered over a number of years in your career, how do you differentiate, or do you come up with, is it a blend? Is it what the student needs? Is it, I've heard enough of your interviews that you don't really have a system which
Right.
allows you to be malleable based off what the student
Definitely.
needs.
Yeah.
Just talk to your philosophy for someone out there who've read about you, seen your name, and they just want to hear.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great question because I think about it now coming to Colleton, the demo's a little bit older, and I'm really thankful that I learned to teach all levels of players coming up through the ranks. It wasn't like I was thrown in and I'm teaching scratch handicaps and tour players.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of come up through, teaching golf schools has been super helpful. Teaching beginning golfers has been super helpful. So I know how to transition from different levels of player, right? And then but yeah, I'm sort of a melting pot of all of that, right? If you come in and I'm teaching like a really good player, you're going to hear, you're going to hear P1, P2, you're going to hear accumulators, you're going to hear, anatomical language,
Mm-hmm.
flexion, extension, all this stuff, and then
Shaft deflection, toe droop.
Yeah, or what? Yeah, so what? And you sort of meet your students where they are, right? And then, I teach beginner or so different that I say kind of tail wags the dog as opposed to dog wags the tail, like an old school Jim Flick on golf. Like changed my whole life in teaching beginners, like understanding how to get people to use the club in their hands and arms first and then add the body. And that's how I teach ladies. I mean, I think it's just little things that I've learned along the way that I've had to use to be successful.
Mike Adams uses that a lot. For anyone to follow, you see him always with usually with ladies, it's like, okay, take your arms back until it runs into your chest and then go ahead and turn.
There you go. Yeah. And I won't, like for ladies, I teach them, basic grip or the relationship between the back of the left hand and the face. How do your arms and hands move? Typically kind of L to L swings. And I always say you don't have to write a book about it, you just have to feel it, right? It's like not that your body's not going to move, it's just giving the idea. As soon as you try to get a lady or a beginner to try to move their body, a lot of times it's just a complete disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made plenty of mistakes. Now, I'm working with one of the assistants at Colleton, really good player. It's all about pivot, right? So I'm using a lot of stuff I've learned from like George Gankis. I'm learning from, using the ground from like Chris Como stuff, right? So learning how to like adapt to the player that's in front of you is huge. But I don't know, it's tough to say like what's my philosophy. I ask a lot of questions, try to gather as much information as I can from that player, because you've got to know where they came from as far as, who they worked with in the past, what are they trying to do, what are they thinking about, whether you believe in that or not. And you can usually tell because most students are pretty good at doing what they're trying to do a lot of times, and it's usually the wrong thing that's going to make them better. So for me, I'm really good at kind of working around physical limitations, which I've had to deal with a lot with older members, older students that have had multiple surgeries, replacements. Yeah, I mean, it's like you better know how to get those players to hit it better in 30 minutes, or you're not going to be very successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really good about that. I mean, I understand how to screen people, I understand TPI stuff, but my job as a coach is to figure out how do I get them to move better. Mark Bull, another 3D guy I didn't mention earlier. Shout out to Mark Bull. Learned a ton from that guy. So I know, and it's funny because a lot of the pros there at where I'm working now and my boss are just asking me questions. It's like, how do you sort of make it look so simple? It's like it's a combination of all the information and knowledge that I've gathered all through my life, and knowing which piece of information to administer at the right time. And so I'm trying to find the quickest couple of things that are going to help that player immediately. Right? So it's just, it's hard to explain. When you're doing it, it seems easy for me, but look on the outside looking in, you're like, oh, wow, how did you know to do that? I'm like, well, because I learned this 12 years ago from this guy, and this worked, and this is kind of what I'm doing. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah,
it's like, it's hard. It does. It's from coach to coach, you understand it, but from the outside looking in, you're like, wow, I can't believe you just did that, and the guy's hitting it great, and what happened, right?
I think from the outsider looking in, they don't understand that it's For the better the player gets, I consider it two poles. Right, like beginners are at extreme one end, and tour players are at the other. And for me, working with beginners is sometimes very difficult because they get extremely frustrated. They all think they should be hitting the ball 150 yards dead straight with their 7-iron on day one. And they're doing so many different things. It's like they can do all of it right, not sequence it correctly, and they hit it, top it.
Yeah.
So, but as you get to tour players, I tell a lot of people that the window that you're looking at their swing is extremely, extremely small.
That's right.
And the scary thing with tour pros, you're dealing with someone's livelihood.
Yeah,
right?
You better be right.
You better be right.
Yeah.
And you better have a lot of experience and a lot of different things you're pulling from, because if you're tweaking like the engine on an Indy car, that engine can blow up if that driver's pushing the red line. And you do not want, that's the last thing you want to have happen.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, and I love where I'm at now, and even at Carmel, a lot of diversity. I mean, I kind of got the reputation because we had so many good players. Like, all you teach is good players, and that's not true. Mm-hmm. I teach everybody that walks in the door. I don't care who you are, but I have that ability to kind of transition. And beginners, you just got to lower their expectation. You got to help them understand it's a difficult game. Let's get it airborne and forward, right? And this is how we're going to do it. I don't care if you got to tee it up this high. Right. Like get them success early so they don't, get too frustrated.
To me, the easiest ones to teach are like that 6 to 12 handicap, because they know enough about the game.
Yeah.
The swings are usually good. They're working on it. Well, around here, probably 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And that one's like, okay, do this. And they do it like, wow, that was it? Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and they think there should be more.
Right. That's
the genius of the teaching, right? I mean, that's the genius. If you've given them as little as possible and you got the biggest change and the best, quickest results, then that's the right thing, right? But it's just managing it all the way through, right? I mean, people can overdo things. I mean, it's a moving target. As I always say, teaching golf is a moving target. But I think the biggest thing is being able to deal with personalities and learning styles and being able to say things the right way, use the right metaphor, use the right analogies.
See, that's a thing that you don't see pushed enough in teaching. Everybody's worried about the early extension or what's my numbers on TrackMan, and it's a communication business. It's a people business, and I think whether it's people gravitating towards the videos online and that's what they want to learn from, and not enough of just someone coming along and saying, maybe it's not the sexy thing to say, hey, semantics is very important. The words you use, how you express yourself, the type of learner, the way that people learn or comprehend information. All of these different things play a role in making somebody an exceptional teacher. You alluded to it earlier. Yeah. If you want to learn how to teach better, write articles or go do a presentation, because now you got to grow in as much as you've just spent years growing out.
Yeah.
Right? You're gathering all this information. Now you got to internalize it and say, how am I going to present this in an efficient manner?
Yeah. Be willing to take the heat.
Yes.
It's like putting your stuff out on social media is not, you're going to get criticized.
I give Andrew Rice a lot of credit because, he was local, so I knew that he was going out and I knew that he was lecturing. He was one of the first TrackMan guys at one of their first universities. And Andrew would go out and speak, and he was putting himself on YouTube, and some people were trying to tear him down. And I'm like,
sure.
Man, and he kept doing it. And I give Andrew all the credit in the world for that.
I mean, that's how I met John Graham. I did a video. This will go back to D-plane days. When we first started learning about D-plane, and TrackMan kind of brought that to light. Is I did a video on how to curve a golf ball, and it was the old Nicholas aim the club face, where you want the ball to end up.
Which is crazy because Butch said he does that with DJ.
Yeah, I mean it's like that's a whole nother subject, but it's just kind of, but anyway, so John reaches out to me, like DMs me or whatever. He goes, I humbly would ask you to. He was very nice about it, to like research the D-plane. And but again, it was great. And we became friends because I was like, oh, what is this? What's going on? And so it forced me to get better. And we laugh about that story all the time. It's like, the same way with Ridyard. Ridyard was in like stack and tilt. And me being very non-confrontational, I don't know, I may have had a few too many beers or something. I'd put up something on Twitter and it was just really out of line. And he came back at me, and then we ended up. I was like, hey, let's have a talk about it. And then when I started digging into Mike and Andy's stuff, and it made sense, what they were doing and how they classified swing, and then all that. It's an evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, wow, like, and that was a huge life lesson for me. It's like, don't bash something until you understand it. Just because you see somebody teaching something, you say you don't agree with it. Figure out why that person is successful or why that works.
They're doing something right.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was a big life lesson for me, and it changed my whole philosophy about how the pivot moves and how how low point is created and all this stuff that I use today. I can and I've told Andy, and it's amazing. It's just little bits and pieces along the way, and then you kind of just figure stuff out, and then you add the personality and the body language and the EQ stuff.
Is somebody who grew up where you had that core of that, where you were everything, the small community as we talked about, and then you expanded upon that. Has the philosophy always been that, and then just making that circle or that toolbox bigger?
Yeah.
Or has your philosophy changed over time?
Oh, I think it's changed a lot over time. As soon as I get more information or different information, I think it did. One of my last presentations at my workshop was how my teaching has changed. Like not trying to get posture railrod straight, getting somebody's back straight. I try to get forever, and understanding that's not a great place to start somebody swinging. And John Sinclair's helped me so much with wrist angles.
Yeah, his video on wrist
unbelievable.
angles,
Like I always tell, and I've been doing a lot of work for Hack Motion, doing I've spoke at the PGA show and virtual PGA show the last couple of years for them, and like if you want to help golfers of all levels, you better understand how wrist angles affect club face, right, and how they move, and massive help, right? And then now being able to measure it, and then looking at the graphs and learning 3D, just stuff like that, and you just sort of keep adding to it, and then you learn. If you told a young coach out there, it's like, what do you need to learn? Well, you need to learn about all the joint centers, how they move, and how they affect the club, right? So, going back to the diversity of teaching different levels of players. If I'm going to teach a newer player or intermediate player, I'm going to teach them how their hands and arms move first and how they square the club face, and then let the body respond to that, which sounds crazy, but that's the best way to kind of get somebody to learn club face angle, sweet spot control, low point, right? And then you might start adding some pivot stuff in there, and then you get to somebody that's a little bit more advanced, and it's all about pivot, right? Body swings the arms. I mean, they know how to square the face. They know how to control the club face.
Yeah, but squaring the face is key. It's like Josh Whiteskin, when he's talked about in his book, when he got taught how to play chess, they had, 3 pieces on the board. It's like, okay, you're going to learn how to do this, because when you get well advanced, this is the foundation for that.
The Art of Learning?
Yeah, The Art of Learning.
Yeah,
there's another book sitting over there. They're all on the same shelf.
Good. Yeah.
But yeah, and I from what I'm taking from what you're saying, that's you're doing something very similar to, hey, you got to, if you don't understand this, then all the other stuff, you might as well just throw it away.
Right. You can have the most beautiful pivot, teach a newer player to move nicely. He's a good, good athlete or whatnot. If he doesn't have any kind of face and sweet spot awareness, he's not going to hit it very good. Or you can get people to move, sort of look good on video, but they can't hit the ball because their hand-eye coordination, they don't have the skill development to actually make contact with the ball.
Right.
I mean, there's so much, we're holding the handle, and then we got a golf club on the end of it, right?
Almost a 3-foot stick.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I think about this stuff all the time. It's like, you'll see video every lesson. It's like, well, it looked pretty good. How did you miss the golf ball, right? It's just, that's something inside that's intuitive as far as being able to give them skill development drills. I mean, I'm big on, again, it's like transitioning through sort of the learning and the development of the player. It's not just about making them look good and, hitting all the positions a lot of times. I mean, throw a bunch of balls on the ground and tell them to hit it without stopping. Give them a machine gun drill or something like that. See how they do there. How's their body moving now? When all they're thinking about is just trying to make contact with the ball. Right. So a lot of that stuff. I mentioned like Dr. Kwan, like one of Robbie Fales. Shout out to Robbie that just left Carmel onto new bigger and better things. He went and got certified from Dr. Kwan, came back and taught me a ton about how people move the club with their feet, right? How's the body moving? Using a rope. There's just so many different styles that you can go in what direction you want to go with whatever student you have in front of you. And that's where we got to figure out, what are you going to do with this guy, right? After you interview them and you see them hit balls and you know what their goals are and you sort of have all this information, what are you going to do? That's the genius in the coach.
The dynamic of teaching golf has changed so much. When we were younger, it was, a local person who usually played the tour, and it was like, well, do this because this is what I used to do.
Yeah.
Or maybe somebody
teach
showed
what
them,
they're working on.
Yeah. Or somebody showed them something at one time, and the level of depth of the scientific side wasn't there. Where now it's like we can't keep up with everything. You've got people all over the world doing different research and going in depth on things. It's like why even and I think golf coaches are maybe some of the first ones who stopped arguing online, because it's without knowing somebody and you're sitting by a computer screen. The whole Nesbitt and that
the Alpha Wars.
Yes, I was listening to your Michael Finney one today.
Yeah, I had Finney and Manzella both on, and that still kind of, it's simmered down a little bit.
And I'm going to reach out to him because he's followed me on Twitter and always resharing stuff. And I'm like, I got it.
Both guys are brilliant. Learn a ton from Michael and from Brian.
I like Brian's stuff because he comes on with that big grin, right? And it's like he just wants to irritate the shit out of somebody. I'm like, I kind of like this guy. I'm staying out of that one. I don't have the dog in that fight, and they can argue as much as they want, but I'm not getting involved in that one. What is there anything that you look back when you were working doing the schools at the Dana school that you look back on yourself and say, just roll your eye and say, what the hell was I thinking when I was telling these people to do this?
I mean, one was probably the attention to what we'd call fundamentals, which I think is a loose term, right? Trying to make everybody's grip look sort of the same, making people, their posture, stick your rear end
sitting
out.
on a stool.
No, it was more like stick your butt out, get your back straight, like trying to make them look like Adam Scott.
Getting the rear end up. Up on a stool,
creating like S curve, as the TPI guys would know, and like creating probably a lot of back pain. Way too much emphasis on what I call the basics, like changing something because it looked different or didn't conform to whatever picture that I had in my mind. But again, it was like where I was in my career, right?
Oh, I'm guilty of that. Someone pulled up online. I wrote an article about that.
Exactly.
5 fundamentals of golf.
Yeah, it was like that stuff. Not understanding. Like I think, like I was all like, I don't think I understand the ball flight laws to the extent that I needed to at that time, and I was shutting a lot of club faces that didn't need to be shut too much. It just a lot of things that now I understand of how sort of matchups work and pieces work and don't work together, that I can look back and go, wow, what was I doing? It's amazing. Some of these people got better.
Didn't get hurt.
Yeah. I mean, who knows how many injuries I created. So that's a big thing. Like, I mean, I think I've learned a lot just from the biomechanics of my really smart friends and in 3D of like how to keep people a little bit more injury free with the movements I'm getting them to do. And back then, I'm not sure I knew any of that.
I asked the question. Dr. Paul Wood was on recently, and Scotland, Dr. Scotland was on it, and I asked them both the question because science is such a big term, not only in golf. I mean, you put the news on it, right? And there's that big discrepancy on what's going on in the world with COVID. And my question to them was, in some way, shape, or form was his science gotten to be the tag word that's too big that gets misconstrued on one end, because as it filters down into from top level teachers like yourself to maybe guys who aren't known as much, and then to assistants who are trying to teach.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, when we're kids at summer camp, we get in a giant circle. It'd be 100 people in the camp, and you'd get on a piece of paper. The first person would get a sentence, and they'd have to whisper to the next person. By the time it got all the way around, it wasn't even close to the same. So as far as the scientific aspect, because you have a wealth of knowledge on a lot of different things, and before I get too far, what I was getting with the two doctors was, there's the science side, but then there's the application side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're finding out, at least in the golf industry for, let's say, the last 10 years, science has been the measurement has been overwhelmingly dominant. And what we're finding out now is that we've probably known forever, that people are different.
Yeah.
And even though the science says this should take place for this individual, it doesn't work. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because like I said, you're very well versed in a lot of the different ones.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a big topic, right? And it's been a lot of discussion. And I think the key word that you mentioned there is application, right? I mean, it's awesome to throw a 3D system on people and then measure what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's one individual. But it's another to know, how do we apply, the language? I think that's been the big thing. When the forces and torques and the alpha wars kind of came out, I think it's fantastic what they're doing, right? They're learning, and they're really doing a deep dive into what's going on with the golf club. But until we can have a language that we can convey to the student that they can understand and get better and make a change, then it's kind of useless, right? It's really for us. It's really for the coaches to go, oh yeah, I mean, I understand this pretty good. And that's where I feel like, going back to sort of the philosophy question, is like, I feel like I have a reasonable level of understanding of a lot of the science, but I have a pretty good idea of how to convey simpler terms or maybe not even like sort of nonverbal terms, rather than either where I'm moving people around to make the club do what I know it should do, moving their body around to make them feel what they should do, to where they can start to make changes, and not having to really write a book about it. As I always say, they're like, well, what does that, because it's like not about using the big language all the time, which I can hold my own with that. But can you make the student better in front of you, right? So that's sort of my take on it. It's basically it's research, science. Can we build a bridge to, it's always kinetics versus kinematics.
Right.
All that discussion is very, very important in our business right now. But the good teachers are going to be able to help their players with that information. That's kind of what I was getting to earlier. It's like I got all this stuff in my head, and I'm looking at a swing, and I'm like, okay, that's doing this, that's doing that. All right, how do I make this guy change or girl change in a couple of words or a couple of drills where they might understand it?
Yeah, and what tangents might they get off on?
Yeah,
and how
exactly.
Bring them back to
and that's you sort of getting that, building that relationship with the student of like how they best learn. When the light bulb goes on and they're like, oh, that makes sense to me. So that's where that the student teacher relationship is so important. We have that open dialogue where you ask enough questions and you get feedback, and a lot of times they say, I have no clue what you just said. Mm-hmm. Right? Now that's on me to explain it a different way or get them to feel something different. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm trying to think how I was culminating it in my own head. It was, our job is to basically come up with a language to transfer that to a feel for the player, right? Because they like labels. They want to know what does that mean, or what is that called,
right,
when I'm doing this, And ultimately, they don't really have to know that. There's a lot of teachers that say, they don't really have to know the why. I think that they need to know the why.
Yeah, I like to give them
Right?
why.
Yeah, I think they need to know the why. But a lot of coaches will say it's as long as they do it, then they do it. But again, that just depends on how that person's wired and how they process information. I think to where how much they need, and then a lot of people say they want the why and don't need the why, right? And then you give it to them, and then they're like, "Oh crap, like what's."
All
right, now I'm thinking too much or whatever. I mean, it's like I hate when people say that. I'm like, well, you got to think to change. I mean, there's no way. It's not just going to happen.
I usually, when someone starts asking a lot of questions, too many questions, like they go the other way, I say, look, so you remember Alice in Wonderland? I said, how far down this rabbit hole do you want to go? You want the blue pill or the red pill? Because it can go very deep that you're just going to say, okay, enough.
Well, that's the same person in the same sentence. Say like, I want you to keep it simple, but then I want to know like 5 different answers to 5 different questions. And then you got to like reel them back in and go, all right, remember when you told me like you just want a couple things and you're asking me 6. So which way are we going to go? You know, I mean, it's like,
and they don't even realize it.
No, it's just they're thinking and then verbalizing it to you. But it's just no. I'm always going to stay up with the new findings of technology and science, and because I think it's so important. Because we're deep down that's helping. Like we're the conduits as coaches, right? It's just now it's our job to be able to give it to the person in front of you somehow, some way, whatever that is, whether it's throwing them in a suit and showing it to them, whether it's moving them around old school like I like to do and say, hey, this is what it's going to feel like. Does everybody need to know?
How to take what these doctors, Sasha McKenzie and Phil Cheatham and Dr. Scott, how to take all that lab stuff that they're doing and put it in a language and a form that the Mrs. Haverkamp, who's trying to go from 20 to 12, can utilize. Yeah,
and then you got tour players on both sides too. You got tour players you can't use that language to. Then you have tour players like I didn't work with Charles Howell, but I mean I've been close contact. Charles Howell he's like teaching a teacher. That guy knows more about the golf swing than probably anybody on tour. Fantastic, but he likes that. He likes to know why he's doing what he's, why are you asking me to do that and what's it called? And
you never do that with Bubba.
No, exactly. Then you got some guys that don't need that, right? I mean, if you gave him that, it would be like, blank stare. That's why I love like guys like Scott Hamilton, another guy that's influenced me a lot.
He used to work at Harbor Town.
Yeah, I know he's been low country. And so, I mean, that guy, again, another guy that, you wouldn't think, hey, man, I just want to get the hand on the ground and get paid. That guy's smart as crap, man. I mean, he knows his stuff and does a lot of stuff with technology, but you'll see him on tour teaching very kind of old school the way he goes about it, right? So I think you have to have, that's why I feel like I'm kind of a blend of both, right? I've been labeled as a very too technical because I use TrackMan or Body Track. I mean, it's just like nowadays it's like that's not technical. That's just all we're doing is measuring stuff.
I did a deep dive into neuroscience for 7 years. I mean, I wasn't doing it 8 hours a day. It was in the evenings, and I got labeled because I was doing some teaching just to help at that golfers college here, at PGCC, and all the kids are like, well, you're super technical. And so I'm like, look, I'm telling you this so that you know, and then you can change the message, make it take this technical stuff, make it as simple as you possibly can for Joe Smith, who you're giving a putting lesson to, or whatever you're going to do. But for a number of years, I got labeled as, boy, you're just overly technical. Like,
it's just people that don't understand.
Like, well, you got to learn the technical.
Right.
You got to learn the so-called feel, which is, God, sometimes that drives me crazy.
Yeah,
he's a feel player.
I'm with you. Yeah. Yeah. Feel's driven by good mechanics.
Okay, does this feel good? Well, yeah, it feels good. Well, you're hitting it like shit. Yeah, how's that feel working for you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this feels awkward. Well, okay. Well, yeah, that's because it's different than the crappy golf swing you showed up with.
I usually tell the mid-end or the high, and I say, if it feels awkward, then you're doing it right. So
there you go. I love that.
Do you think that there are some things, especially nowadays, that are overemphasized, like the early extension? I mean, everybody's on the early extension. I think TPI brought that forward. Because you look at a Nicklaus, I mean, he had early extension.
A little bit. I mean, not as
Right.
much as you would.
Like the right arm really wasn't really bent all the way through impact. It kind of straightened, or he kind of came forward a little bit. But that was kind of a different
Little
swing.
bit.
More
Yeah.
vertical.
Yeah, a bit more. Yeah, a bit more pelvis sway. More, more linear. More, what they call frontal torque.
Right.
Um,
Or even, I know we talked about wrist
Mhm.
conditions, and I asked this of John at coach camp when he was presenting one year. I said, would you use something like a hanger on the club to make sure that the lead wrist is flat at the top? And he goes, why? I said, well, if they're cupped, you don't. He said, okay. What if they have the potential to go from cup to very
That's right.
flex coming to impact, and it's
Yeah.
whatever, pick the number, 35-degree change.
Mhm.
If you put them in the hanger, not to knock their device, I think is very good.
Yeah.
But he said, if you put them in a hanger, then they're going to be limited, or
Yes.
they could be limited.
That's right.
So I as I look at these things and talk to guys who know the intricacies of all these studies and are doing the studies, and then you watch a lot of coaches online just to follow and learn from what they're doing, and you see some guys, you almost want to cringe at what they're like, no, you need to do this. It's like, well, that's trying to shove everybody into a pigeonhole.
Yeah, you don't know what the player needs. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things I learned from John is, most of the people, and I've learned this from working with Hack Motion as well, is what looks like a flat lead wrist is still extended, 10, 15, 20 degrees a lot of times. But it's not it's the motion, not the position, right? What that means is not everybody needs a flat left wrist or a bowed left wrist to the top. I've seen plenty of players go from bowed to extended, right? They start yanking on the handle and the thing comes down, it opens, right? It goes from shut to open. That's no good,
No.
right? All we know is if one really, really good thing comes out of his research is every good player he's tested goes towards flexion at somewhere from
Transition to
from like 4 to 4.5. Okay, good players close it early, poor players close it late. Simple as that. That has helped me more than anything. Now, having to make that decision as a coach with the player to whether I've seen people close it all the way to the top. I have some people not. I have some people close it on the way down. We used to do an exercise I learned from John where we'd have them swing the orange whip and split their hands because the hands are going to like basically fight against each other. And you start to ask them questions of like, which hand do you feel like is doing more of the work? Like I'm a big trail arm guy, right? So I'm like teaching people how to control the face more with the lead hand and the lead forearm. So we got pronation, supination, and that flexion extension with the lead wrist. Because I'm seeing more trail arms straightening too early. I'm seeing guys that are throwing it, it could be for a variety of reasons, faces open, whatever. But you got to figure that out. But I'm telling you, if you can get people to actually learn how to use their lead side and the lead hand a little bit more efficiently, you start fixing club face control and you fix sweet spot control as well. You don't get shanks, you don't get throw and flips, face pulls as much. There's a lot to do with that, and that's all John's stuff that I took away from the way he teaches. And then he did a video not long ago that was fantastic. If you got, and Scott Calx talks about this too, is like if you're teaching players, not everybody's going to be able to open up their torso at impact. Okay, this is like going back to we're kind of digging from questions that we asked before, like what am I teaching differently? I mean, it'd be great if everybody looked like DJ at impact. They can't get there. Okay, right? You got back troubles, we got hip troubles, we got all exactly. How are you going to teach those guys to not flip it? Well, you teach them how to run it up the wall, as they say, right? So the lead wrist is rotating down, lead forearm is rotating, and then they're rehinging, going radial, past the ball. The book drill is great. Like you put a book in their hands, teach them how that feels, and it's basically it's a golfing machine. I can't remember the term, but Scott Calx talks about it. It's basically rotating the forearms and getting the club to rehinge on the other side. Now you can control the face. You still get forward shaft lean, and they're not having to wrench their backs. Yeah, they're not having to wrench their backs.
The torque on the lumbar spine drops precipitously.
Exactly. You're keeping your players healthy. You're getting them to hit it better. Like, guys that are a little bit older, it's a great way to teach them. I'm doing a lot of that. Well, yeah, me too. I've always had a ton of forward shaft lean. I've never been super open at impact, and I've never had too much trouble controlling the face. but I don't flip it. Like I don't go into early, I don't extend my lead rest this way. It's gonna, it kind of goes up and I go radial. So it keeps the face pretty square to the path. So yeah, a lot of that stuff has just been amazing. And again, you just knowing when to do it, right? What player needs it
And at what point?
at what point? Yeah. What can your player do? Are you testing them? I'll do a few. We have a great trainer at the club that we'll test guys, and they'll send me the information. What are you finding? And then I'll do a few TPI tests to kind of figure out what I'm dealing with, and then obviously just asking a lot of questions.
You'd mentioned working with some tour guys. Are you allowed? Are you working with some now, or ladies? I'm not going to be prejudiced.
Yeah, I've got.
Are you allowed to say who?
I've worked with. I mean, I'm probably I got to be the worst mini tour guy coach in the world because none of them have like stuck. I've had a couple. Like Kelvin Day was probably the best player, and he had a career-ending back injury a few years ago, which was a shame. Guy could really, really play. But currently, I actually just picked up a kid that is actually practicing at Colleton, and he wouldn't mind me telling him. Justin Doden, Canadian tour guy, started working with him, and then Connor Godsey, which is a Corn Ferry guy, I'm working just with his short game.
Mm-hmm.
He works with John Graham in putting and works with Grant Wade on his full swing. So I'm kind of just fortunate to be part of that team, to kind of just be a little small part. And that kid's really, really talented. Going to be out there, but I feel that's the other reason coming down here is hopefully have an opportunity to work with some tour players. I'm a little closer to Florida, and I got a fantastic facility to work with, and so if anybody wants to come and do some work, let me know.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, because I'd mentioned I'd done a deep dive in neuroscience, and I know that you had written an article. I remember reading it sometime back on PGA that you wrote for them. It was here. I got it written down. The reactive neuromuscular training.
Oh,
I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that was basically using bands to. So here's kind of the premise on that. It's when you move people. When I say moving, like you're getting in there, you're moving people around to get them to do what you want them to do. That training is basically working opposite, right? So let's just say it will give the listeners an easy example. Let's just say I'm trying to get somebody at the top of their swing, starting early transition to close the face by using, I call it the motorcycle move. They're twisting their lead wrist into flexion. So I will grab the club face and I will twist it the other direction. So I'll open it and I'll say, you need to close it.
So they're counteracting.
So they're having them, you're making them do the work. So you can do that with anything you're working on with somebody. I use like Vera bands a lot of times. Let's just say somebody's sliding they're moving their pelvis too much towards the target. So I'll put the Vera band around them, stand in front of them, pull them into the error, and they have to resist. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's basically like, it's just resistance training. But I think it's a great way. And there's been studies that show that it really allows for the neuromuscular, I guess, DNA to sort of grab onto it a little bit tighter rather than you doing the work for them and moving them.
Well, yeah, because if it's fighting resistance, then it's going into not the segue, the development of the synapses is starting to get stronger and stronger.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that patterning becomes, everyone knows patterning. Tiger, I think, made that kind of popular in golf. He and Sean. That patterning gets strengthened because if you're working more resistance and it's having to fire harder, then they're going to learn it faster because it's not just some passive thing. It's having to work hard.
They're actively having to do the work, and I'm a big fan of that. I probably don't use it enough. Glad you reminded me of that. I need to do that more because I'm big on just moving people. But it's like once you say, all right, well, that's what it's going to feel like, and then in order to sort of make it stick, go the other way. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, I'm going to pull you. Say somebody is coming down, their hand pass moving out, shaft steepening, whatever. Say, all right, I'm going to make your move, and you need to resist. So they have to actually shallow the shaft or do the opposite. I think it's a great way to train.
Dr. Lynn was saying, and he gave me a guy's name that's a friend of his that's very, very deep into a certain type of learning.
Yeah.
Is it Wu or
Yeah,
Wu?
Dr. Wu.
Wu. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Him and John Dunnigan are doing. I need to do that class. That's another certification. It's motor learning. I think it's
Yeah, and
something to do with
I think
motor
they
learning.
went to someone's backyard and and they had a hitting net, and he's like, okay, I want you to try to miss the net to the right with a closed club face.
Mm-hmm.
And just do something completely opposite.
Yeah.
So you're learning almost the poles of your swing. And then, okay, now we got some parameters to work with, and it's somewhere
Yeah.
in between there. We don't know where, but we're going to get there.
I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, it's basically it's almost like the deep practice they talked about in the with the talent code, right? Learning how to do it wrong, or you can go a lot of different directions. The Goldilocks drill, like when I work on club face control, I'll stick two poles out in front of them, and I'll say, all right, miss it to the right, miss it to the left, and I'll go in the middle. So they're learning what it feels like to go both sides.
I found out in my own practice a number of years ago that and kind of a segue into the practice of variable practice versus with I'm drawing a blank in the other one,
Block practice.
Block practice.
Yeah.
That if I hit, let's say, 5 draws, 5 fades, 5 straight, my swing got better faster because I knew, okay, here it is. We're whittling it down to the two ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
And it's going to be in somewhere in here. Now I might not flush it every time, but golf ain't about flushing every time.
Well, and it also kind of gives the students an awareness of, wow, I can do that. Like you may not even have to tell them how.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, hit a block, hit a pull, and it's amazing how the learning process speeds up a lot of times, and that's a skill development task. Like it's a lot of you can go that direction, which a lot of people do. Is that task oriented teaching, right? And then you have constraints led learning as well. That I enjoy. So it's like a culmination of all those things.
In putting, what I see a lot of people have distance control problems, and I'll watch them. And you look at the look on their face, and they're like, "Okay, what am I doing wrong with my stroke?" I'm like, "Your brain's just cramped. You've gotten to be so finite oriented on making the putt that your stroke has gotten so short and jabby, and you have no flow to anything anymore." I say you got to open it up. Just first of all, just not look at the hole and hit it, but look at the hole, come back to the ball, and become more athletic again.
Sure.
Most people are pretty good athletes. And even if they don't think they are, they have some athletic ability, right? They can walk and chew gum at the same time. And then once they do that, like, wow, really, that big? Yeah, go that big. Because they want it inch by inch. I'm like, no, go. And I'll say to them flat out, go to the extreme. Go to where you think is too far on a big stroke. And they do it, and they look up, and, they hit it 1.5 feet past instead of 4 feet short.
Yep.
Like, oh, geez, there's a novel concept.
You got to push them. Yeah, you got to push them in the other direction. And yeah, there's just so many different. I mean, Ian Highfield. I don't know if you.
Yeah, Ian's been on the show.
Game like guy. Training, fantastic. Like transfer skills and performance practice. I mean, I teach all that. So that's sort of the evolution of kind of how I like to guide the students. Is whether they need how much mechanical work they need, and then you got to test them. Right, I'll either do a combine or. I love he's like, he won't let anybody hit more than 5 balls. Right. So it's just,
which to me, I kind of find that a fascinating area to explore to some extent. Cause I met my aunt was she was a child psychologist and was getting her doctorate she worked with B.F. Skinner. I remember many years ago, I asked her, I said, who's the world leader in intelligence levels of the multiple different ways people learn? She said, how do you even know that? And because I remember Michael Hebron had given a lecture at Ferris many years ago, and I'd followed him, and he's big into that. So I'd kind of gotten involved in that, started learning a little bit on that. But the difference between, like Fawcett says, just you can sit there and hit whatever you want to just all day long, and then you got a guy like Adam Long and Ian who's like, no, you need the variable. And I can see, at least my experience in instruction, is both sides. Like you need block practice at certain times.
Yeah.
When you're learning, relearning, changing something. And I think, but as you progress towards an event or the application of that, the practice has to be more variable. more so to train the mind to put it into situations it's about to get put into.
Right. Add some stress to it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And again, that's just it. Making those decisions as a coach is difficult. Usually it's about the time when they I'm hitting it really good on the range and I can't quite transfer the skill in the course. Well, okay, now it's time to figure out why, right? And you start adding some of that spacing and challenge points.
Like I used to prescribe to some students, like usually if a golfer wants to go from 10 to 4, and I said the first question I ask is, how far do you hit your half wedge? And they're like, oh, about. And I say, no, stop. There is no about. If you want to get to a 4, you need to know how far you hit your wedges, and then your half wedge, your 3/4 wedge. I mean, your wedge game's got to be really good.
Yep.
And I'll prescribe to them. I say, okay, if you're going to play in the men's day, play in the men's day, but you're 90% of your practice is going to be on wedge game. I said, what about my driver? I say, to control your wedge, the trajectory, the distance, and the spin, your swing, you don't have the time to make up any deficiency in your swing. So your swing is going to be more in sync from the beginning, learning how to hit good wedges. And you'll have a grace period to go back to the driver because of length of swing, but your driver swing will improve, or your iron swing will improve if your short game, wedge game is improved. Kind of like if you're doing weight training, if this, like a bench press. So I was in training when this recession hit. That's like I mentioned, Charles Poliquin, Paul Check, all those guys. Dan Hellman, who's been on the show. That it's very well known in that community. If you're trying to improve your bench press, then you need to work on your shoulders. So do a lot of shoulder presses, because then when you go back to the bench, you can do just more because your shoulders are now stabilizing. Your chest can do the pressing. So I had always utilized distance wedges as the precursor to improve the swing. Yeah. And a lot of guys did come back and say, yeah, it usually took about a week for them to get the timing of the swing.
Somebody to do it is the problem. Right?
Yeah, and I usually getting the ones who are just completely fed up and they have no other choice but to listen.
Yeah.
Right? They've just struggled and been beat up so much. All right, let's jump out of that stuff. Let's get into some technology, because you have quite a bit of you've obviously even races. We talked about the YouTube and everything early on, but you've got an e-newsletter that people can sign up for on your website, and that for everybody that's going to be in the summary. The podcast, the app. Let's talk about the podcast since we're on a podcast.
Okay, all right.
And just kind of what made you want to do it. We talked about that a little bit before. Yeah. But just you've been doing it for what, 3 or 4 years?
3 years, yeah. And again, I got to crank it back up here as soon as I get things going.
How many episodes?
120 some, 25, 125, I think, something like that. I try to do one a week, but it doesn't always pan out depending on busy time of year. I think it started, it was just kind of like the evolution of what's next, to like provide information, or get information, sharing information with other coaches. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and there's some great ones out there that are trying to help golfers. Right. So I was like, what am I about? I'm trying to help golfers with my teaching, but I'm really passionate about sharing information with other coaches. And then obviously having the opportunity to sit down and spend time with people that you admire and respect in the business is amazing. Mm-hmm. Right. So I had no clue how to do it, right, to start out. So it was a lot of Googling and YouTube videos, and what do I need to buy, and how does this work, and how do you even get this thing off the ground. And it was interesting. It was one of the guys that worked at Carmel, and he was in banquets, and we just got to know each other, and he ended up being a musician. He was a rapper, and he asked me about social media. He's like, man, your Instagram's awesome, and how do you promote? He's like, I'm trying to start my own business as a producer. He'd gone to school and was bettering himself. And I said, well, I'll help you with your Instagram, and I'll give you some tips. And he goes, well, you should come by the studio and we'll do some stuff. I'm like, what am I going to do? He's like, well, you ever thought about a podcast? I'm like, well, yeah, I have no clue how to do it. So he kind of got me going, and he produced my very first shows with John and James. Which was okay. I didn't have the right equipment. The audio didn't come out great. But anyways, it kind of it spurred my curiosity to go, all right, how do we make this better? So just like you're doing, it's like, yeah, you start talking to people. I've reached out to a lot of producers and people that did it for a living, and they helped me out a ton. Jordan Harbinger and his producer helped me answer a lot of questions, and it just kind of kept going and then figured it out. And then I was like, ended up doing it myself. So I do all the editing, I do all the production work in the back end myself, which takes a lot of time. But I like it. I enjoy messing with tech. I learn a new skill. I think putting together, doing research on people and putting together questions, I think has helped my teaching. And then obviously the selfish reason is I've gotten to learn.
Yeah, it's
so
amazing
much more
how
from
much
other
you
people.
learn. Right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So, it's been fun. And then, every time that I think, man, this is just too much, and I don't have the time, somebody reaches out with a DM or a text and says, man, you've changed my life. Or that last podcast, I've learned so much from you and these people and the young coaches. And that's really was my vision, is like, how do I help young coaches? Because I just want to leave a legacy. I just want to help the young. I want me as a 23, 24-year-old to be better because of what I'm doing, which I didn't have at that time. It's probably the best answer.
And, the only knock I've gotten, at least that people have said to me or posted or wherever they're going to let me know, is the length of it. Like, I don't have, because most of them, you see, they mostly run 2+ hours.
Yeah, mine too.
And like Dr. Wood, he came on, he's like, I never thought I could talk for 2 hours. I said, I told you it goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Was that kind of the plan going in, to keep it long form versus short?
Yeah. Again, it was like I was sort of modeling, like it was basically Joe Rogan / Tim Ferriss. And I listen to Joe Rogan all the time, and I'm like, dang, this was, very conversational, not very structured. I'm like, that was cool. And then Tim Ferriss, a little more structure. I know he puts a lot of thought in his questions. And I just started listening to like David Letterman and like people on TV that would ask questions like, oh, that's a good question. I'd write it down, or I'd make note. I got this huge file.
I did the same with like Dan Patrick used to be on here on ESPN Radio.
Dan Patrick is great.
I'd pull off the side of the road and I'd write it down.
Right. Yeah. You just hear it. So you start paying attention to different things, to be like, I want to be a better interviewer, right? I want to do a better job at being a host. And I didn't at the time, like I had, and golly, I mean, we talked about the Butch Harmon episode last time, and I didn't get to half my questions. Like we could have gone on for 5 hours, right? I was trying to I go into these things, I do a lot of research, and I like have this sort of structure of when I want to ask the question, how I want to lead the guest, and he just kept going off on tangents. It didn't look anything like it was on my
I've had a few of those.
Yeah, which is the best kind, right? Yep. So yeah, I didn't care. I think the content trumps the time, right? Hopefully people are hanging in. I don't know how long we've been on.
We're an hour and a half.
Yeah, right? So hanging in, for this. Hopefully I've added a little bit of value, but yeah, I didn't care. I didn't care how long it went. I mean, again, I listened to Tim Ferriss. It'll take me a week, maybe, but I'm in the car or I'm running or working out, and I'm going to listen to it. If it's good, I'm going to keep listening to it.
I started the same. I'm a huge Ferriss, as we talked about, Rogan. And I used to painstakingly, it would take me almost 10 days sometimes to outline all the questions and trying to think. And I don't know if it's just experience now or if it's just I got more into Rogan in the conversation.
Yeah. You don't need as many notes.
Don't need many notes.
Yeah.
It's like, even yours, I didn't start it till this morning. I obviously knew who you are, and I followed you on social media man. Quite a bit. But each one I'm going into more and more, not completely blind. I already know the person, right? The social media aspect, but I'd known enough about you but I want to make it conversational.
No, I think it's great, and it's like, it's I don't know, it just depends on the person, and like people, big names like with Jim McClain, Butch. I was a little nervous, because you want to do a good job, and they end up just letting you off the hook. They're like, "Hey, this is great." You're like, Butch telling me that he listened to my podcast. How cool is that, right?
That was very cool.
That made my entire, like, are you kidding me? And like Martin Hall, stops me at the PGA show 2 years ago, and he had been a huge, it's like, again, mentors I'm going to forget, but huge influence on me. I'd spent some time with him, super nice, And he came up and said, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you in your career. I've watched you grow. The podcast is." I'm like, "You listen to the podcast?" He goes, "Let me know if you want me to come on." I'm like, "Next week, let's go." It's like that's so. I never really planned ahead, like booking guests. It was almost like somebody that would reach out to me, or somebody I'm like, "Oh, that'd be great." So I like doing that, almost like a spontaneous type of situation. People that I want to spend time with. So yeah, it's just
I did the long form because I liked Ferris and Rogan's, and it was
yeah, you're gonna do what you like.
and the other reason was I would always email when I was just getting started. Nobody knew what the hell Golf 360 was. I would email them and say, "Look," I'd warn them up front because the first couple I didn't, and they're like, we didn't know it was that long. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, I get it."
Yeah, some will give you a little bit of crap, like tour players. I've got a couple tour players, friends of mine, are like 30 minutes. I'm like, dude, I can't get through the intro in 30 minutes. Like, I don't think we can do it.
And my theory was, look, if I've got guys like you and these people who are world experts or have spent 25 to 40 years in a field, to ask them to cram something into 60 minutes or less, it's not going to happen.
No, I agree.
And it doesn't allow them to run with something where I'm just going to get out of the way or get off on tangents.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, whatever it goes, it goes. Doc Sasha, I think his was one of the shortest. He and Doc Brett. And obviously, they're they're stars.
Brett's great.
And
That's I mean, he's my sports psychology
I love
guy.
his stuff on social media. I love seeing his
Fantastic.
posts. He's got to me the best posts on Twitter.
Yeah,
Everyone's trying to knock something or something. He's always something positive. I love his stuff.
he's great.
I got to get him back on. Tell him, Doc, we're going a couple hours next time.
Yeah, I've had him on. We did when COVID first hit. That's what I did. We did a IG live, and then I did a podcast simultaneously. So we were doing both, and he's the best.
The let's see. We talked about the Finney stuff. Your mantra, your show leans towards more coaching because as you said, you're trying to get to junior golfers. Was that kind of the plan, or was it reaching out to other coaches in the industry because that's what you knew, and that's how it's developed, which is great for young coaches or even advanced coaches that they're learning so much. But was that the style, the design that you wanted?
Talking about just the way I teach, or
no, having a lot of coaches on. Yours it has coaches and the doctors and
definitely.
It's a learning podcast.
Absolutely, yeah. I always say and I'll tell the guests before they come on, like, be as technical as you want. Like, it's teacher to teacher. Like, don't worry about if average golfers understand it. That's not the idea. They can go to On Your Mark podcast or go to another podcasts that are great to help golfers, but I want them to experience what I've experienced spending time with all these great coaches, so that they don't get they don't have to travel like I used to have to travel to go watch these guys. Not that you can't get more out of watching somebody teach and spending time with them, but they get a little gist of what's this guy all about. People don't realize how a guy like James Lights, how good that guy is, right? I mean, it's just, these guys are amazing coaches. And if they don't get to spend time with them, they at least get to learn their stories. You start to get commonalities through every guest, when you start asking them, hey, what are you doing? Like, oh, wow, this is, wow, that guy said the same thing. Must be something I may need to try, So it's more, that was definitely the vision was teacher to teacher. Let's get down, let's have a few beers or a glass of wine and let's get into the good stuff, that people want to listen to. And you do it 3 hours and people will love it, it's been fun.
And there's guys who do short ones, like Cordy Walker, I think does a phenomenal job on 45
Earn Your
minutes.
Edge.
Yes.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
And people said, you got to get more like Cordy. I'm like, look, Cordy does a great job. I could never do that. That's just not the way I'm wired. And from day one, when I put it together, I said, it's not going to be short form.
Yeah, and they get more tour players on there too, which, those guys don't have time to sit down and talk for 3 hours.
I want to tell someone, I said, hey, you got more time than you know what to do with.
Oh, yeah.
They just don't want to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, they're getting pulled different directions. But yeah, Earn Your Edge is a great podcast. I listen to that.
What have you learned most from doing your show?
What have I learned
And maybe
most?
maybe it might go hand in hand with the next one. Is what do you hope listeners learn from it?
Yeah, I think that what I've learned most is really the backstory of how people get to be successful, right? The adversity, and I always try to pull out the tough times that these people go through. High performers, people think that high performers are just, they show up great and then it's just a steady climb to the top,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not that at all. It's really how they navigate the tough times, the stories, and them again giving credit, as you've heard me give credit to so many people already in this podcast. It's like I don't know anything. All I'm doing is learn from other people, and I haven't come up with much, right? So giving people credit when they've helped you or you've learned something from them is important. And just how they live their life, right? I mean, it's more than just the golf stuff. It's just like, being in that space where, they're going to help other people, right? And that's why they come on the show, is to help other people. And I think that's kind of the mantra that there's just so much, right? I mean, there's a lot of technical stuff that I've taken away, but it's more of the life stuff and the journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think that young coaches need to hear.
Yeah, when I was having a tough time, I got let go from an assistant job, and I'm picking the range at a course just to still be able to practice and play until I could find something else. And it was in the winter, and I'd go home and I'd just chill out on the couch. And I started watching A&E, and they always, or the biography channel, and I always thought, like you just alluded to, that the Sam Waltons and the Bill Gateses, that these guys just never made a mistake, and they just got on this ride and they just rode it, and they're still doing great stuff. And then it's like Sam Walton went bankrupt like 5 times. Like, what?
Right. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No way.
Great book, by the way. I read his book a long time ago.
I'm like, this is, it completely changed my perspective. I'm like, okay, so now I'm not feeling so bad about my position. It's like, okay, just keep working.
Mm-hmm.
And, if these guys did it, why can't I do it?
That's right.
So that was,
we're just trying to give people hope, right?
Right.
It's just like I always tell my students, I sell hope. Right? I mean, nobody wants to hear they can't do something. I mean,
that's right.
And I guess some people may need a kick in the butt occasionally. And that's important. I mean, I never thought I'd be where I'm at today, but looking back from where I came from, I mean, just work my tail off, man. I mean, it's just, there's no other way around it,
I still get scared to death. It's lessening each podcast, but everyone, I'm like, God, Jason, he's coming over my house. He hasn't met me yet. What if he thinks I'm an asshole?
Yeah.
This show's going to be terrible. And I still think what's going to happen
to
the recorder.
That's like, you got to be a little bit uneasy because, we grow. We meet new people, and now I've met a new friend.
Mm-hmm. The other 2 things you have, I want to touch on them so people can check them out. And because I'm not very tech savvy. I mean, some of my friends say, "Oh, you got you built your website." I say, "Yeah, but I needed to do that." Like an apps, I think I'm in awe that you got an app like that. That's
I
the
didn't
coolest
build
thing in the
the
world to me. Right, but you still have it. I hope it's doing great.
Yeah, it's doing well. Swing U, shout out to Swing U. Kirk Pagenkoff used to be the big guy in the PGA Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Approached me a few years ago and wanted. I think he was with what was the guy? What Foley and Martin Hall? What's that group called?
Revolution Golf.
Yeah, Revolution Golf. I think he was part of that early days, and he wanted to sort of do something similar, put together a faculty. So I mean, I was fortunate that he wanted me to come on as a master faculty. It was Michael Breed and Jim Hardy and who else was it? Chris O'Connell and Hank Haney. Pretty nice group. And I was like, okay, I'll take a look at this. And it's like, we're going to build you an app. It'll give you another platform. I can do online lessons through it. It's been great because, I mean, it's forced me to get in front of the camera again. I shoot a lot of videos, for the drill library. And then it has like a social feed, basically like an Instagram, where I'll post something every other day or so and just stay in touch. And it's also been great I gave it to the Carmel members like for free. And I'll do the same thing for Colleton. But then you can subscribe for people that can't come work with me or too far away. So it just gives me another way to kind of get out there and kind of share, what I'm doing. And yeah, it's been good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend everyone checking that out.
Yeah, it's in my bio, my IG page. If you want to click on there, you can see it's pretty cheap. I mean, it's only like $20.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good way to connect.
Just another avenue.
Yep.
And your newsletter, do you do that weekly? Do you do it monthly?
Yeah, actually, I've halted that just for a minute, but that was through Swing You as well, and it was.
You
it was
I mean, you moved, right?
Yeah,
it's not like you moved down the street; you moved another state.
Right. Yeah. So I've I don't really need that at this point, but yeah, it was the same. My marketing team at Swing You put that together for me, and it would be basically the same stuff. A couple of videos, pretty simple but pretty cool. That I'll probably start up later on again. But the app's kind of the big thing as far as the external hustle, I guess.
Yeah, I try to send an email a week, and it'll usually either be a video, I'll go do. I drag my girlfriend out there on Sundays, and we go out in Old South and film.
Yeah.
Try to film 3 to 5, just have the library, and then I'll either have, the next week will be a podcast, so yours will go out next week, because I try to do it on Tuesday morning.
Good.
Just to stay in front of people.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Looking back on your career, which you've had very successful, accomplished, distinguished, and still going strong, is there anything you'd take a mulligan on if you had to do it over?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not sure it'd be a mulligan, but it'd probably be a series of mulligans, but just
sleeve rule.
A sleeve. Yeah, I probably need a sleeve of balls that I wish I would have had a little bit more direction when I first got into the golf business. Like, I wish I would have gotten into teaching sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, because, I basically turned pro right out of college. I'm an assistant and I'm trying to play. I played a lot. I mean, I was playing a lot of section stuff, teaching a little bit, but I had no clue. Right. I just didn't have any, and maybe it was just, I was unfortunate. I didn't have like maybe a mentor, but I mean, that's my own fault. Right. I mean, I could have easily reached out and been more aggressive, but I just didn't. I don't think I knew. I don't think I knew really where I wanted to go until I got to that, my first head pro job, or assistant pro, then head pro job, and then figured out I didn't want to do this anymore, and I really had a passion for teaching. I feel like I burned like 8 years, that I could have been doing a lot more.
Yeah, but it pushed you in that direction, so maybe you had to go through that.
Yeah, I think in the end, it's
as a young guy,
right.
If you would have gotten to teaching, you're like, yeah, this isn't really for me, and then you go off in something, maybe you're chasing your tail forever.
Who knows, right? Yeah, I don't know, but that's the big thing I kind of look back on is like, I wish.
Yeah, now as you learned a lot, you're like, man, if I had 8 years more, I could learn some more stuff. I wish
somebody. Yeah, I mean, I was, I was I was running around and having fun and doing stuff. That I wasn't really focusing on being the best teacher or golf professional I could be at that time. So
I don't think anybody is in there.
Right. It just, I don't know. I guess because I've hired a couple that are like amazing, right? I mean, it's just, God,
it's a different world.
It is, I always tell the young guys, like, there's no excuse to be stupid nowadays. I mean, it's right there in front of you.
It's hard to be stupid.
You can get the information. Now, the experience part, you got to kind of get out and put yourself in a position where you can teach a lot, but there's no excuse not to understand basics of the information that's being out there, because it's right there.
Where do you see, as you've experienced the entire technological change, how it's changed coaching and golf over your career, where do you see golf and coaching going in the future? If you had to make a prediction.
I mean, I think a lot of the same. I mean, I still think it's going to be a blend of teaching and coaching. As far as technology goes, I think the 3D is going to get better and better. Like, as soon as they figure out how to make.
John's into 4D now, isn't he?
Yeah, that's just the name of the company. 4D is great, but I think they're kind of moving in that direction where I think they make, as soon as somebody makes a 3D system that's a little bit easier time wise to use. Like we have Swing Fit at Colleton, they have gears, but it takes a minute to get people on that, right? And so there's a lot. I just think that's coming. And 40's a good company. Obviously, K-Vest has made a lot of. I've got K-Vest. They've made a lot of advancements in that area too.
I remember John saying he wanted to get something, one of the new things. His wife said, "Can you just back off the $20-some thousand
She's great.
toys for a little while?"
Yeah. He spent so much money on technology. Like he had one of the first three, the first AMM from Dr. Neal, and he still uses that because it's the most accurate. Like he knows exactly what. So he's consulting now.
He was one of the ones that we went to lunch. He and his wife and I, and I was talking about the putter fitting system I put together, and I said, "Look, I'm really not a technical person." He goes, "Here you are talking on neuroscience, and you telling me you're not technical."
Yeah, exactly.
I said, "Okay, I'll give you that one."
Yeah, I'm a big, I'm trying to get. I don't have Sam Putt Lab. I had Sam Putt Lab at Carmel. That's what I'm working on getting now because that was like my baby. I mean, I've done a lot of research and used that a ton for my putting stuff. But yeah, I think it's just ease of use. It's just all we're doing. Anything that we're doing is just saving time for people, right? Saving time for coaches, saving time for your players. How do we get things faster?
More efficient.
I think a lot of the stuff like Ian's doing, like the transfer skill, practice training stuff is going to get bigger. People are realizing that, beautiful motions don't also always transfer, and you need to teach people how to practice, and you need to work a little bit more in that bridge of, getting the skills to transfer to the golf course under pressure. I think that's a lot. I mean, so I love the TrackMan Combine stuff, but it's like being able to simulate tournament pressure is very difficult for high level players. It's just hard to do
because it's internal.
Yeah.
And how do you measure it? I used to tell the sports psychologist, I said, "Look, at least on a lesson tee, I can see the ball flight, and I can put it on video. You guys, you can't see anything because everything's going on inside their head or their gut." Right. And I said that's to me is a very, very difficult. You got to extract all of it. You and I have to extract what they're thinking and how they feel things. They got to extract the thought process, which is, talk about needle in a haystack.
And sometimes they can't do that, right? And that's why I'm working, with like Justin and these guys that trying to get out there. It's like it's the stuff in the cracks. I mean, guys got the skills. Mm-hmm. You watch him, and he can flat hit it, and he does. I mean, everything's great. Just what's that 1% that's going to get him to the next level?
Like Tom Watson had to go through it. Yeah. Who's going through it now? Would you say? Well, Rory's coming back from it to some extent.
Yeah, he's going through. I mean, he's changed swing coaches, working with Pete Cowan, which we know is a fantastic coach, and next thing you know, he misses a few cuts and looks like an idiot. Like, I mean,
what's crazy to me about Pete Cowan is you got Rory goes to him for full swing, and Gary Woodland goes to Butch for full swing, but goes to Cowan for short game.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Like, I mean, I'm not a full-time short game coach, right? But I mean, Connor got sent to me by one of my friends, and like I can easily teach him full swing too. I mean, it may evolve into that. I don't know. I mean, but that's where I've always tried to be as well-rounded as I could, because if I was going to teach tour players or high-level amateurs or college kids or whatever, I want to be a jack of all trades. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be like, I don't like teach putting. That's why I was like, I don't know much about putting. So 10, 12 years ago, I'm like, I'm going to really dive into it. And I'm pretty efficient. I mean, when I got mini tour guys and college kids and stuff come to me just for putting, and Tim will send me some of his kids just for putting, then you think you kind of know some stuff. But I want to teach it all. I don't want to pigeonhole myself at all. But
more of a generalist instead of specializing.
Yeah.
You say.
Yeah. But I'm happy to. Yeah, I'm happy.
I got Epstein's Range and Sports Gene here on the corner of the desk.
Yeah.
I got books all over this place.
Yeah, you do.
My girlfriend said, "You got to get rid of some of these things. Can't you give them to Habitat or somebody?"
No, build your library, man. It's great.
So of all the things that you've done and you're into, the podcast, the teaching, the newsletter, everything, what do you got? What are you working on next, or what have you been giving consideration to?
Oh, wow. I mean, right now I'm just kind of getting my feet settled, new area, new club, met 500 new people.
And you got to remember their names.
I remember their names in the last 2 months. Just trying to get settled, and then I'm going to figure it out. I mean, sort of on the the periphery, it's like I want to bring more education to this area. I want to start working, and I want to bring hopefully attract some good players to kind of fill the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I think it
kind of
can
I've
be
always
done.
done. Yeah, I've always had that. And I talked to Tim like before I took the job, and I'm like, "What do you think?" He goes, "Well, it's going to be, you're going to have an opportunity because there's tons of players in Charleston, Florida that are going to come. I mean, they come to Tim. They
go all the way to Sea Pines.
There you go. Yeah, so it's like I think that's going to happen once people kind of figure out where I'm at. I've got people reaching out to me now that still think I'm in Charlotte. Yeah. I'm like, drive about 3.5 hours south, and you can come spend some time. But
I've always looked at dates of when things would be good to have, like sometime around 4th of July, because then coaches or players, whoever can take a vacation.
mm-hmm.
I just don't, the island, you'll see it, it's going to swell. There's about 100,000 people on Hilton Head for 4th of July week. As crazy as it is now, it's going to get worse.
A lot of my members go back up north in the summer, so it's like, I need to kind of get my bearings.
And Andrew's got kind of the stronghold on that December, that late November, December with the coach camp.
No, I don't want to compete with that.
Right.
Again, he's doing a great job, way better, I think, than I even did with my Guru workshop. But I think smaller groups,
regional, probably more regional.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, that's what the last couple of years I've just done a bunch of collabs where I'll have guys come in for certifications. We'll have 10 or 12, 15 pros, and they get certified, and then we might have them, like Ridyard will come and we do a couple clinics for the members, and then we do something for the pros. That kind of thing I think is probably what I'm going to start with.
Because you have enough pros that are within a 5-hour drive. Let's say the Charlotte radius, or even Atlanta. Go Charlotte, Atlanta.
Even then, yeah. I mean, in Charlotte, I think we had 80 one year. We had 80 pros from 15 different states, just all around that were coming. Texas, and New York, and Philadelphia, or whatever. So it was, if you put together a good program, they'll come. The hungry ones will be there.
Hungry ones, that's right. A lot now.
Yeah.
Best piece of advice you could give to a young teacher, just like in your position, getting out of school, they want to get into teaching.
Yeah.
What would be the best thing, or
just
a couple of things you could tell them?
Seek out top coaches and go spend time with them, right? Go shadow, go observe. I'm telling you, most of them will take you up on it. And I've never turned down a young pro that wanted to come watch me teach or hang out.
Mm-hmm.
It's an honor, right? For me. That would be the first thing. And then, then go and start doing, go dabble in some certifications if you got the money. Like I said, Scott Calx, Ridyard, Phil Kenyon. Go spend some time with these guys. Have great information online, but then you can actually go and spend time with them. I mean, hopefully, as things are starting to loosen up a little bit now, we can start gathering again and doing that. And then the last thing I would tell them is go teach for free. Go find somewhere they can just teach. Even if they got to sit on a range and just watch people hit balls and just talk to people.
You know Mark Wood? We used to do the Golf Digest schools when those were started. He was young then. He was in the top 100. I think he's up in Jersey now. Used to work with Flick and Tosky and those guys. Mark did our coaching seminar at Ferris. He had to be about 40 then, and that was 20-some years. So he's probably getting close to retirement.
Mm-hmm.
But in that seminar, he said he was an assistant at the club, and he told the pro he wanted to get into teaching. The pro said, okay, here's what we're going to do this year. You're going to teach for free the entire summer. And he said, are you crazy? He said, no, but you're going to do it. And he didn't know why the entire summer. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the year, he went back to the head pro and said, thank you. He learned so much because he was booked constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, the first thing I did when I was at Carmel, and this is after I was, obviously had a decent reputation, started kind of late in the year. It was like October. And, some knew me, some didn't. You'll get a few trickle in, and I was like, man, I'm not as busy as I thought I'd be. And I reached out to a friend of mine, Charlie King. I said, he goes, how's it going? I said, well, I thought it'd be a lot busier. He goes, well, have you given any lessons for free yet? I'm like, what? And he goes, just do it. So I did like a free 30-minute like swing analysis or video analysis for anybody at the club. You know, we have big membership. And that turned into about 50 lesson series right after that. And I was kind of off and running. But I mean, it's just, that's after being established. But I mean, a young teacher that, you know, is just learning. Like, you're not going to learn unless you just get your hands dirty. Get in there and get, you know, mess people up and figure out why. I would tell them, you know, start keeping a journal. Start writing things down. You know, whether
you can't remember everything.
That's right. Yeah.
Especially as you get older.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if I don't write things down, I'd forget. So it's, yeah, just all that stuff is important. And, you know, then start building those relationships with coaches that you admire. And
Networking.
Yeah. That's it. It
pretty
could
good
not
advice.
be
Anyone out there, write those things down and do what Jason just said, and you'll be fine.
It couldn't be easier nowadays because, I mean, again, you got Instagram, you got Twitter. I mean, you know, reach out to these people. If, you know, some will DM you back, some won't. Just got to keep pestering them.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people, like, I can't respond to every single DM I get, but the ones that I see more than once, I know that they're serious.
Shane LeBaron, who now he teaches in Arizona in the winter. He lived here for a while, and he worked with Jim Hardy, I think, for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where he just went. I think he was in Chicago in the summers. But he when he was living here and he wanted to get into teaching, he emailed and Butch's academy like every week for months. And Butch finally said, okay, you can come out and watch a lesson.
Yeah.
And
persistent.
And when he met him, he's like, you are a persistent son of a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's...
If you, it weeds
how
out.
bad do you want it?
How bad do you want it? It weeds out the people who don't want it as bad.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why I'm a lot that way, too. I don't do it on purpose. It's just a lot of times I just forget to, like, respond to a text or whatever. And it's like, just keep hammering. And, you know, if you show respect, and I've had people write me letters and stuff, you know, so you don't have to do that. I think it's cool, but DM or an email is plenty.
You want to do some emergency back 9 rapid fire? Get
Sure.
you out of here. You've had a long day.
Yeah.
All right. 9 questions. If this one gets asked, the first and the last one get asked to everybody. So if you got your game in shape and you got your tour card and you made the Ryder Cup, what would be your walk-up song on the first tee?
Wow, that's a great one. It'd either be Till I Collapse from Eminem, or it would be something from Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full album.
All right. Let's see. Here's an interesting one. If you could, would you rather like to speak all languages or to all animals?
All animals.
Yeah, I think me too.
I love yeah.
I got 2.
The wildlife is crazy around here, by the way. I've seen more eagles and turkeys and...
I'm surprised. It's been unseasonably cool.
Yeah.
And the eagles are still here. They usually go up, your way or up Asheville, Cashiers by this time of year.
I've seen just weird stuff happening.
We got a couple owls that hang out in here because we've got so many squirrels. You hear them out there hooting at night.
That's awesome.
Let's see. Go-to drink on the golf course.
I mean, it's usually like a Miller Lite or something, but I'd say if it was I don't drink much liquor, but it'd be like a vodka tonic or like a transfusion or something.
Good,
yeah, something like that. If I was like, if I was away from work and with friends.
Yeah, we used to play in the Savannah member guest. A buddy of mine over there is a member, and so they got me hooked on those transfusions. That stuff's...
The Carmel members love those.
Oh. Let's see. John Wick or The Equalizer?
Equalizer.
All right. If you could take any golfer's swing in the world throughout history, whose would it be?
Sam Snead. Modern day right now, I like Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, and he did that chopsticks drill forever, didn't? Who's his coach? He said he hated doing that
I
thing.
can't remember his name. Yeah. I love his action.
I'm surprised he hasn't won more.
Me too.
Because he's played big in some big events.
Putting's let him down a bit, and Phil's helped him a ton. I want to bash on my boy, but he's such a good ball striker.
Let's see. 3 more. Last book that you read, because you read a lot of them.
Yeah, I hadn't read as much lately. Wow, what did I just read? What is it called? Guy like Corey and them talk about it all. The obstacles away.
Oh, yes, that's a very big. What's the
Yeah.
guy's name? I can see his face.
Yeah, they actually had him on the podcast.
That's a very good book.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I think that's the last.
Ryan
Holiday.
Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a good one. I always recommend it to a lot of my students.
I got to
too.
get that. I'm just so backed up on my reading.
Yeah, I babble. I kind of go back and forth. Like I'll reread a lot of stuff. You know, just like I don't know. I got my library like in my learning center now, so I can just grab a book if I need it. Like I forgot about that, or I'll grab it and look at it. And I've got 4 or 5 that I haven't read yet that are sitting there, kind of like you. It's like I buy them. My wife's like, "You gonna read that?"
I think I might get that from my dad. He was a literature major.
There's a couple that have been on Tim Ferriss's show that I've bought. I can't remember the name. I'd love to drop it, but I can't.
I'm going to start doing more since I've got so many of. Hey, check this one. I put one up last. Fear, the expertise. Not fear. Peak, the expertise of learning. That one was pretty good.
Okay.
What they call it? Not delayed. It's like incremental learn. Like basically just take your time, get better every day. Find someone who's good because just doing something isn't going to make you better. Not to the level that you're going to really excel.
Yeah.
So find somebody who can help you, and then listen to them as much as you can.
Well, it's like when I think about my career, it's like that since whatever 2008, 2009, we started really getting into the social media and my career started sort of taking off. It's like I felt like I was gathering information so much. I was reading a ton, and I was doing all this stuff, and then the last 10 years, I feel like it was more of doing, right? So I was studying
put it in
less.
action.
Yeah,
right?
I was studying less and I was doing the stuff. More trial and error, more application stuff. So this next phase, we got to figure out what that's going to look like.
That was kind of where I got the question of, okay, what do you got next?
Yeah, I you know what? Again, we talked about it. It's like I feel I'm enjoying myself more on my days off, my time off now, fishing more, doing the things that I've been wanting to do instead of like having my head down all the time. So I feel almost like I'm lazy.
You need some balance.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Yeah. So I guess the next phase is going to be balance.
It's a good one to have.
Yeah.
Let's see, 2 more. Biggest celebrity in your phone contact list.
Biggest celebrity.
If you're allowed to say. Maybe they might have said don't tell anybody.
As far as like sports figure, probably Will Myers.
And then the last one, everybody gets this one too. Greatest of all time. Golfer.
Oh.
I usually say Jack or Tiger. Now, I've had some people throw out some different names.
Yeah, I'm going to say Tiger. Huge Tiger fan. And I'm a big Nicklaus fan too, but I mean, obviously I named my son Nicholas after him. But I think just in our day and age, it's just we've been so blessed to like watch this guy play golf.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully he gets to play a little bit more. But even if he doesn't, like we've been so fortunate to
Been a good
watch him in 2000, 2001, and then come back the 2019 Masters, and I'm weeping. I'm crying. So it's like, I think he's the greatest.
We've been pretty fortunate. We had Jordan, Tiger,
Yep.
Michael Phelps, Federer, and not Djokovic is trying to make a run at that. I mean, it's been awesome. Serena, been very fortunate in being a sports fanatic to have seen the people I have in
Yeah,
from growing up till now.
definitely.
All right, this has been awesome. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I'm very
Thanks.
glad that you're in the low
Thank you.
country. Tell people what you got coming up or your social media handles so they can reach out to you, follow you.
Everything's Golf Guru TV, and I just came back from my YouTube days. At Twitter, Instagram, pretty active on those. You can, if you like golf and you're a coach, you can friend me up on Facebook. I've got friends. I don't do Facebook as much anymore, more like family stuff, but very active on that. And then go check out the app.
And your website?
golfgurutv.net.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you, they want a lesson, they want you to speak somewhere that they got coming up, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just email me at golfgurutv@gmail.com. That's
all
my
right,
personal
and
email.
Usual, everybody, all the links to all those things will be in the summary and the description. Jason,
Thanks,
it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's
Cool.
great to be here.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.